Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Camera Life podcast, proudly brought to you by Lucky Straps. It is the 2nd of October. September just, poof, it's gone. Disappeared, blink of an eye. This is episode 121 of the Camera Life podcast, and as I said, proudly brought to you by Lucky Straps. We are Lucky Straps, and we make premium, handmade, Aussie-made leather camera straps in Bendigo, Victoria. And yeah, check it out. Head to luckystraps.com. We can send you a strap anywhere in the world, almost. Small disclaimer, almost. But that's enough about that. This is the Camera Life podcast. It is Thursday morning here. And of course, that means we are interviewing another amazing photography guest. In this case, we are re-interviewing Andrew Chapman. G'day, Andrew. Welcome back to the show. It is an absolute pleasure and honour to have you back on.
How you going, Greg? Justin, you good? I've got to say, it's a bit of a hard act to follow after Michael Coyne last week.
Oh,
nonsense! A crazy episode.
That was a great episode.
Yeah, pretty phenomenal contribution to our craft. But you know, you yourself have got some pretty decent cred behind you. So
that's right.
We're going to unpack more of that today. But how are you doing, Justin?
I'm great. I've got my coffee. I'm ready to go. Everything's working this morning, so it's good. The chat's here. We're a couple of minutes late, but that's good. It gives the chat a chance to get amongst
each other
and throw rocks at us for being late.
And of course, we had a podcast last night, so we haven't left our seats.
No, we're just back to back. For those that sort of aren't familiar with Andrew Chapman, which will probably be one person, maybe. For the one person that doesn't know who you are, Andrew, should we give him a quick rundown before I go through the chat?
Yeah, let's do it.
Are you going to give the rundown, Justin?
I think you should do it.
Yeah, go on.
I'm a bloke who's been taking photos for 55 years. I've made a lot of mistakes to get where I am. How's that for a short summation?
That's beautiful. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. You've just nailed it, Andrew. Should we say good morning to the chat, and then we're going to dig into some of Andrew's stories? And fear not, everybody. Andrew has 55 years worth of props that he can share with us, gear, bits and pieces. And we're also here to talk about Andrew's latest book. Now, this is book number 10 for you, I think.
It's around about that. I lose track.
Around about that. Yeah.
Once you get double digits,
there's been a lot of. In fact, October's a double book month because I've done a number of joint photographic books on the Mallee, the Wimmera, and now we're launching the Western District on the 24th of October. So I've got two book launches this month, but Fill the Frame is the main one.
Just two. Two. All right, let's say good morning to some people, and then we're going to unpack a little bit more of, and only probably a little bit in the time we have, but a bit more of Andrew's story.
Philip Johnson, good morning. John Pickett is here. Lisa Leach, always. David Mascaro, good to see you. Paul, Noel Butcher, Rodney Nicholson, LTK. And yeah, Philip Johnson, only feels like yesterday. Wait, it was, half the people in the chat were here with us last night until about 10 p.m. So good on you for rocking up again this morning.
Yeah, but if you didn't join us last night and you're curious as to what we talked about, we're covering off. Basically, we had a Bright Festival of Photography, which is coming up not this weekend, but the one after. It's fast approaching, and we're going to be there, of course, as the Camera Life and as Lucky Straps. But yeah, last night we had a bit of a packing Q&A party with Nick Fletcher and Matt Crummins talking about the Bright Festival. If you're going and you haven't seen that, jump on and watch it. And if you're curious to find out more about BFOP, you can watch it as well. It's a lot of fun was had last night.
It was great fun. And it's
what a great place. What a great place Bright is too.
Oh, I know. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's perfect spot for 550 photographers to get together and all rock around with their cameras and take pretty pictures.
Should be able to find something to photograph up there.
Shouldn't be too hard.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's
actually we turn to photographing our feet. But
it's a shame because it's on the same weekend as your Fill the Frame book launch. So otherwise we'd be trying to get there.
What can I say? Say?
We'll be there with you in spirit, Andrew.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
fine.
We will be thinking
I'll cry myself to sleep for a week, but I will get over it. Okay.
Okay. Good to hear. We're glad that you're emotionally stable. All right. Well, let's unpack a little. Where do we want to start? Let's. What do you think, boss?
Well, I was just going to say anyway as well. So Andrew's been on the podcast before in the lead up to an exhibition. It was a couple of months ago, but we mainly spoke about the specifics around that exhibition and that work. So this interview is really the chance for us to talk about everything.
Okay.
The entire journey and go every which way. So we should start from the beginning, I guess, Greg.
All right, let's roll back the clock. Andrew, if it isn't too much of a mental stretch for you, let's go back to the early days for you and talk about what were the catalyst moments or the inspirations or the people that motivated you to take up photography?
Well, it really goes back to high school days, to my days at Caulfield High School in the late 1960s. I wasn't an overly applied student. I wasn't a rat bag, or I didn't get into trouble, but I just wasn't. I'm not saying I wasn't academically bright. I wasn't academically interested. I was a little bit interested in history. I was a little bit interested in art and to a degree English, but I never applied myself. I wasn't good at anything. I wasn't good at playing sport. I loved music. I mean, the 60s was still happening, and, Hendrix and Cream, and I discovered my spiritual mentor, Bob Dylan, in 1969, and all sorts of things like that. I told myself I wasn't going to ever smoke, and then started smoking a year later. It was kind of that sort of period. But
back then cigarettes were healthy, so
yeah, exactly, and cool,
sort of healthy, yeah. But I had a friend at school. I still have this friend, Brian Pieper. He's a painter and a Melbourne artist now. Brian was good at everything. He's good at painting. He was good at drawing, cartooning, architecture, all sorts of things. He could have done anything, but he was also good at photography, and he had a camera, and he let me take some photographs with it, and I took a couple of photographs, and they came out. I can't even remember what I shot, to tell the truth, but it was something I could do, and it's something that just sort of what I call a light bulb moment. That period of time when something happens to you that switches on the light bulb, and there you go. And that's what happened to me. I've met people throughout life who've never found what fires them up, what burns inside. And I always kind of feel a little bit sad about that. But other people I know, it's a bit like that Carlton and United ad. Oh, you can get it milking a cow. I don't know.
Wow, that's a flashback.
Matter of fact, I've got it now.
Yeah, I love that.
But it just comes upon people, and you both know, and you yourself are probably very passionate about photography. You wouldn't have started a podcast if you weren't passionate about it.
Very true.
And it fires your buttons, and it fires my buttons, and 55 years later, it's still firing my buttons. I've met people I've met lots of much more talented photographers than me, who've just been naturally good at it, and I go, oh, how come I can't be naturally that brilliant? But a lot of them tend to sort of get burnt out, and they leave it, and I jokingly said to Noel Butcher, who's listening in there, hello Noel, that he suggested the title Fill the Frame to me, and I'd been playing around with a couple of others. I thought Slow Starter might have been a good title for the book, and then there's another, Not Dead Yet, which my designer Anna Wolf really likes, and I kind of pretty keen on that. But I aren't dead. I ain't dead yet, but no. I'm working on it.
Oh, that's fascinating. I just need to provide some clarity. I feel like we need a ticker tape thing that explains Australian slang and colloquialisms for our international viewers. But a rat bag is someone who mucked around, someone who was always causing trouble, giving the teacher grief in school or classmates. So that's what a rat bag is, in case you're wondering.
Yeah. I wasn't a rat bag like that.
No, you weren't. No, I know.
I'll sue.
Oh, damn, it's recorded. But so do you recall, that you talked about that light bulb moment? I call it the Oprah aha moment. But do you remember kind of what was next for you? Was there this kind of urge to get your own camera?
Well, yeah, there was an urge. I might mention that Brian also had a darkroom. And back in those days, learning photography, doing the backside of it, the developing and processing was as important as the front end of taking the photos. So, I learnt to do some basic exposures and did some prints. And there's, I'm assuming you guys have been into the darkroom, done a bit of that work, but there's nothing like the first print you ever do. And you put it into the developer tray and you see an image appear out of nowhere. And it's such a magic experience,
Yeah.
I don't know, this is probably a terrible analogy, but it reminds me of somebody talking about being a heroin addict and taking a shot of heroin, and they're forever chasing that first hit.
Yeah.
They're forever trying to replicate that first experience. And printing up in a developing tray, it's just so magic, You sit there and, what can I say? Yeah, I've done a lot of that, a lot of time. And most photographers did a lot of time. Most commercial photographers who had a business were doing a lot of darkroom time because a lot of their income source came from the printing and the developing of negatives and films. Sure, you could get it done, but, one of the reasons black and white photography was so dominant over colour for so many years is that photographers had access to the control of the process via the darkroom, selecting contrast, lightening and darkening prints, that sort of thing. Whereas the colour process, you put the film in, you got the results back, whether that be prints or whether that be colour slides, colour transparencies. What your shot is, what you got. And it was really only with the advent of Photoshop in the 90s that you started to have some control over that process, I guess. Prop number one, guys. Here we go.
Oh, please.
So I'd learned photography. Dad had a camera, and here it is. That's a Zeiss Netax.
That's nice.
With a 4.5 lens, 75mm 4.5, and shutter speeds, I think a 25th to a 400th. It's not even got slow shutter speeds. But that was the first camera I started taking photos with. And, I did such classics as a couple of the girls from school to impress them and things like that.
That camera looks brand new. It looks like it's in such great condition.
Is that the camera? The
that
one?
is the camera.
Yeah, you haven't rebought one later on. And
no.
That was
this
similar.
is the actual camera. In fact, I gave it. I decided at one stage I didn't need it, and I gave it to my nephew Angus, who was kind of interested in very old things, and it was his granddad's camera. So I thought, and then I got a bit nostalgic for it, and I got it back, and I put a roll of 120 film through it at Christmas, and there's another half roll, and I lost interest, and the half roll's been sitting there for 6 months. So, I didn't lose interest. I've been consumed by doing the book. Really, full frame has taken up that time, but I want to get back to that and to shooting with that. So, it's a lovely little machine. There's actually one photo in the book of a guy on a bicycle crossing. It's a really old, early 70s shot. And he's got an old felt hat, and he's got his bike with the handlebars up, the racing bars up, and he's standing in the street in Ackland Street in St Kilda, and it's just got this otherworld feel about it. It's a beautiful camera. So I'm hoping to do something significant with it this year.
Well, no doubt you will. I just want to comment on that whole darkroom process. I like you. I was trained in film, and I went to art school after high school. I didn't do photography in high school. I don't think our high school even offered it. But went to an art school. It was more like a year 13 folio prep, and like you, I had a mate who are bummed around with, and we homebrewed beer, and we went out on the weekends with our cameras, and I think a big part of that experience for me was having to try to control the unknown. You were always second guessing yourself that, oh gosh, I hope I haven't exposed this film while I'm loading it onto a canister, and all the way through the process of shooting and then developing your images. There was so much unknown, but that was the joy of film photography for me, was working out how to control the unknown. How to get good shots.
Every week, every day, shooting as a commercial photographer, you had that problem. Have I made any mistakes? Did I get this right? Is the light reading right? Did I put the film in the camera right? And you develop strategies as a photographer for that. To for example, you're loading your Nikon and you put the roll of film in, you get it, you wind it once, and then you back up the rewind lever till it's tensioned, put your finger on it, wind on a couple of frames, and you can feel the film traveling across, because every photographer could tell you about the time they put a roll of film in the camera and it didn't take.
Yeah.
And they didn't get any photographs. And so you develop those sort of strategies. And then, shooting color transparency, or slide film, as a lot of people know it, that was another thing where exposure had to be critical, and you had to learn to shoot accurately and that. And when we moved, I'm probably jumping ahead a little bit here, but when we moved into doing magazine work, I can remember shooting for Time magazine and shooting colour transparency on news jobs, and then all the newspaper photographers be there, and they're all shooting Tri-X 400, sometimes pushed to 800, 1600. The rule with colour transparency is you very rarely went beyond 100. You're often 200 and stuff. I remember age photographer, a really wonderful photographer, Michael Rayner, who lives up at Castlemaine. And Michael was talking one day about shooting the new Prime Minister walking down a corridor inside Parliament House. And he's shooting 100 ISO. And he said all the other guys are fanging. He said he could hardly take a frame because he was, I don't know what he was on. He was probably down at a 15th or an 8th of a second. And so you had to learn to survive in those sort of conditions as a transparency shooter on assignment. Develop techniques like, you'd run a slow shutter speed, but you'd pop a flash on and fill the flash in at about half a stop underexposed. So you get this flash blur look, and different things like that. That was quite a learning curve. But as I should hook back to the black and white. It was all black and white there that we learned about, that we cut our teeth on. And I used to have a saying, black and white is the essence of photography. It's like it's a photograph without makeup on it.
Yeah.
And that's how I used to feel it. It still is.
I like that.
It's still my soulmate, black and white. And, it's funny. I just picked out my favourite photos, and, probably 2/3 of the book's black and white, maybe 3/4, because it gets me right here, as the saying used to go. It does. And, they're the photos I want to be remembered by.
That's a fair call. That's a fair call.
There's definitely something about it. I gravitate towards it for sure, and I'll often try the image in color and then go back to black and white. And I don't know. I just prefer. I've been printing stuff on my new printer over the last week, and yet all of the photos except one are in black and white. And I'm like, this printer's got 13 color inks in it. I should be, using the most colorful photos that I can find in my catalog. But all the ones I wanted to print, they're all black and white.
Yeah,
well,
it's weird.
I think if you go over probably the famous photographs, okay, sure, color wasn't around in the early days, but still so many of them are black and white, and you watch any TV program, situation comedy or series or whatever, and you look inside the people's apartments, what's on the walls? Black and white photographs.
Yeah.
I don't think people notice it, but yeah, that's what the designers, the visual designers for the sets and that tend to go for.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm surrounded. I can't really. I don't know. This might be dangerous on a video, but I'll do a loop here. There's a beautiful. That's one of my photos, but that one there. That's that's John Gollings's photograph of Bob Dylan arriving at Essendon Airport, and
oh wow,
love Bob Dylan so much, and that's a great photo of John's, and that brings me great happiness. There's photos in the corner, black and white. There are no colour photos in this room.
Yeah,
I'm afraid to say. I've got a painting over in the back corner that's colour, but that's another thing.
Yep.
Yep. It's very messy in my office.
Oh, it's better than mine.
I get to the point where I go, do I clean up the office or do I turn on and play with some photographs? And playing with photographs always kind of wins.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
No,
it can wait. As long as you got a clear trail from the door to your chair. But at the moment, I actually don't even have that. I've got boxes of podcast equipment that have been unboxed just all over the floor. So I can't even get in at the moment.
Oh, you'll need Jelena to bring you another meal soon.
I'm not a mad collector. I remember, people who collect things, and I remember a story about a bloke who once he couldn't even throw out a newspaper, and he lived in a terrace house, and the corridor of the terrace house was lined with newspapers stacked to the ceiling on both sides because he couldn't bear. And one day he was walking down there and the newspapers collapsed and killed him. He buried him under the.
What?
He died under So I haven't got to that stage yet.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good.
Stay one step back from that. Yeah.
It'd probably be very easy to slip into that sort of thing,
Yeah.
Especially with cameras. Imagine you'd have cameras.
Well, talking about that, so we're going back to the early 70s, and I have got another camera to show you from that period. And my brother Chris, my dear departed brother, who was also Dad and my brother Chris were into photography before I was even interested, funnily enough. But he was doing quite a bit of it in the early 70s, and he picked up this little classic Leica trading post. It came with this 50mm lens and a 135mm lens, $40.
Oh, that's crazy.
And
just to clarify something, sorry, Angel, just jump in to clarify something. For those that aren't aware, the Trading Post was pre-internet. It was a newspaper, a print newspaper. It was the equivalent of eBay, but
eBay or Facebook Marketplace,
in paper form. And you used to have to look at the ads, ring the person, or just go around to the property where they've listed and have a chat and hand over cash. There was you
used to have to go to the newsagents very early on a Thursday morning.
Yes,
that's right.
Yeah. I used to do a paper round and used to have to deliver it.
I used to go and get it, and then I would highlight all the potential motorbikes, 80cc motorbikes, because I was a kid and I was like, I'd love to go, because I had a Pee-wee. I'd love to get an 80cc motorbike. So I'd highlight them all, and then I'd show my dad, and he'd look at them and he'd go, Narra Warren, that's on the other side of the planet. We're not going down there.
He didn't go. Tell him he's dreaming.
we didn't get that far.
Well, have a listen to this. Hang on, listen in. Oh, hang on, have I wound it on? Oh, beautiful. Still just fires beautifully. Can you hear that sound? Is that coming through the mic?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, do it again.
Oh.
Now, that camera was designed in 1936, and I could still go out. The lens is a little bit soft, I've got to say. It had a 50mm collapsible lens. See, that you screw it and just push it back in. So that was the sort of shape of it in, and then you pull the lens out, quarter turn, and it's like that. And, you know, very easy to use. Had a rangefinder. It's very simple. And that philosophy was really the basis of modern 35mm photography. This model 3A, there was one before it, but that's what set 35mm photography on its trajectory. And that's what created probably modern photojournalism, I think. That ability to photograph things in the moment.
Yep.
It's a pretty important camera. So
have you looked up what that thing's worth these days?
Funnily enough, if you've got they had screw mount lenses, and most of the screw mount, you can buy a screw mount Leica like that for $600 or $700. It's not overly expensive, and never lose value. It's a nice little thing to have. It's the M series which came out with the bayonet lenses in the 1950s that became very sought after and very, you know, the price just jumps once you get into an M series Leica to a couple of $1,000 for a basic one these days. And they're beautiful cameras and stuff.
Yeah.
But Glenn Lavender says, but $40 in the 70s is like a small house in Toorak now.
It's very true.
Got to take that into account.
$40 for a Leica in 1970 or so, it was still a pretty good buy, you know.
Yeah, for a Leica, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
I just want to zero in a little bit on a couple of things that you said before, because there's a couple of comments that are relevant. Lisa Leach, who's a listener of the show and sends in her photos. She's only been shooting for 12 months. It's taking great images. And she says, those of us learning in the digital era could be considered blessed, but the problem solving and experimentation of film must have provided immense learning and understanding of the craft. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you about that and what you think, because also Noel said he doesn't agree with you much, but you're right about the print coming up in the developing tray.
I love the shade you throw at each other.
We're old mates, so I've got to say, you know, he's not just, I know. We hang a lot of shit in each other. Yeah. Mine's usually better than his, mind you, having said that.
Rodney Nicholson also says magic moment. So what I wanted to ask you about, like, what do you think today, people getting into the craft today, what are they missing? And is there a way that you can still get some of those feelings and that excitement in the digital era?
Well, as I said, you used to have to shoot and hope you got it right, you know. So there was a bigger discipline in getting things right. I mean, today you can shoot and you can just review straight away. You can flip the camera down and go, oh yeah, that's good, fine, you know. And you know you've got it in the bag. I mean, it's pretty hard to make a mistake. Having said that, mistakes still happen. But you know, it's pretty hard to get something wrong or to know you haven't got it right. Black and white or film things, you often could get it wrong. You could have, you could be shooting a job and you've forgotten you're shooting some flash and somehow you've bumped your shutter speed up too fast and you're getting half the frame exposed and half unexposed because your flash sync's not working, or there's also a multitude of things could happen that you think you're getting right. So there was a lot more pressure there, a lot more thinking it out. But when digital came upon us, it was also a great time, and personally, this is how I found it, that you could review your mistakes very quickly, and there was an accelerated learning curve at that point, particularly in colour and light. and what light was doing to things. And now that's gone a step further with mirrorless cameras, I guess. So, you're seeing in the frame exactly what you should be seeing on your monitor. You kind of know it's all there. It's not like shooting on a Canon 5D Mark II or whatever and then looking at the back. It's just not the same. Mirrorless is a totally different concept, and you can shoot pretty cleanly and pretty fast with it, knowing that you've got it in the bag.
Yeah.
But I can remember photographing heroin dealers on Smith Street in Melbourne. Smith Street, for people who don't know, is in Melbourne. It had a very heavy heroin use problem in the late 1990s, and I was shooting for Time magazine, and you go around behind shops and there were just a sea of needles on the ground. And you couldn't even walk in there, and it was so epidemic. But I got into a car with. I met a guy who was a heroin dealer. I knew he was. I could work it out. Anyway, he said, "Do you want to come scoring with me?" He said, "Pay me $40 and you can come scoring with me and that." And I said, "No, mate." I said, "We can't ethically pay to do that." And so we let it go at that. And the next morning, I'm down on Smith Street, and he comes up and says, come on with us. We're going to go and score some smack from our mate up in Richmond, and then go and cut it up and shoot up into our necks. So I said, "Yeah, okay, I'll be in that." So I jumped in the back of the car. I had a young female journalist with me at the time, and we went off to Richmond. We weren't allowed to photograph the guy who's scoring from, but then we went to Abbotsford, and he's holding up. I'm in the back of the car, and he's holding up this little balloon of heroin, and he's holding it up, and he goes, "Oh shit!" And I said, "What's the problem?" He said, "There's a police car behind us."
Oh.
And fortunately, the police were obviously worrying about their morning cup of coffee and where they're going to buy it from. And they didn't bother us, but it would have been kind of an interesting scenario to get busted for heroin use in Abbotsford. Anyway, we went round to the back of a block of flats in Collingwood. These guys were... they're subsistence users, they were heroin dealers. So they would buy some, they would sell enough to pay for the deal, and they'd use the rest. And they were shooting up, I can't remember exactly, it's like 3 or 4 times the normal street dose, and they were injecting into their necks. And I sat in the back of this car. The light was perfect, and I just had to lift the camera and take the photo. It was amazing. And I got this quite dramatic shot. And I can remember going back to the Darkroom. That's from the series. You've got it there. And I can remember going back to that's the shot I'm talking about there. I mean, just look at from a light perspective, it's just perfect lighting. It's
beautiful and terrifying at the same time.
Treat you really, really well. And this time I did. But I can remember shooting that, and I knew damn well I had the shot. That was a killer shot. And I can remember going back to, I used to work, use the Darkroom at my friend's 3 photographers, Ponch Hawks, Melbourne legend, David Johns and Michael Silver, who now runs Magnet Galleries.
Yeah.
And they had a darkroom in Fitzroy at their studio. And I can remember going around there and processing the film and just sweating on whether I got it right. And then pulling the negatives out and looking at them and knowing I had it right. And I was under so much pressure with this shoot. I did a little jig in the darkroom. I was so happy to get it. And I got that shot, and I thought that was going to be a great cover of Time magazine. But Unfortunately, it didn't run as the cover. I think it was too confrontational. But you know, to me, it was the shot. And still is the shot. Even going back to the very early days of photography, when a shot's a real keeper, I've always immediately known that a shot is a real keeper. Other times you're not so sure, but there are certain shots you just know, and that's one in the case in point.
And I think that that comes back to that magic that we talked about earlier, when you talked about developing your first print and just seeing it appear, and its detail and emotion and light and shadow and all of these things that now we get the instant result. And and that's fine. It's just how technology has pushed us into newer and faster ways of doing the craft. But I do recall that kind of moment of I think that's the shot. But then you still didn't know, because you could have rolled the film onto the cartridge, Paul. There could have been light leak because we're using school cameras. I didn't know how good they were. There was so much unknown still. But you had to trust in your skills. You had to trust in your process, that you did keep the negative in the dark, that the film was loaded correctly. You go through these mental checklists as you're doing it. And I don't know that it's a shame that we can't do that today. It's just different. And obviously people can go back and pick up cameras and shoot film. It's just an interesting change of observation of how our craft has changed so much in a relatively short time.
I remember my mentor and great photographer, John Cato. I don't know if you've known about John, but John's father, Jack, was he was the Collins Street photographer in Melbourne in the 1930s, and John learnt from his father, and he worked in a studio with the famous fashion photographer Athol Smith. And John was a great landscape photographer, and towards the end of his life, I was making a documentary on him with David Callow, and John said, I think the best of photography finished in about 1989. That was his opinion. He just felt that everything that had been done. Now he did get to see digital come in, but that was his feeling. Everything had been done. I don't think that's necessarily true, and I don't think that's a reason not to take photographs, particularly documentary photographs, because the nature of documentary photographs is to record history, to record the way we are. I mean, you look at a photo of a person walking around with the new mobile phone, the Motorola Brick in the late 1980s, and you look at it today and you go, holy moly, And history changes. History starts from the moment you take the photograph.
Yep.
The very second. And it's the past drifting away.
Yeah.
It's just moving slowly away from you the second you take that photo. And it's kind of interesting to photograph all sorts of things. There are so many different photographers. One I'd bring to mind, I haven't met Warren, but Warren Kirk. Do you know the Westographer? Warren Kirk.
No.
You should look up this guy. He's amazing. A Melbourne photographer. He's done a couple of books, Westography, and I think he's doing one on country towns and stuff. But he just photographs He photographs houses, he photographs people, he'll do sets of photos, like 3 photos in a row of a speedboat with a tarp over it outside a house. Different speedboats, or 3 combis, 3 red cars, letterboxes. And then he does interiors and he does portraits. Go and have a look at his work. It's very simple is not the right word, because it's very complex, his work, and he's very, very good at it. but there's lots of people doing lots of great projects like that in documentary photography. I personally think reality is as good as it gets. You kind of don't need to go any further than reality. It's just, it's so interesting. It's hyper interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think? In my mind, and I could be wrong, so I'd like you to explain to me, because you've got a lot broader knowledge base on photography than me. But it feels like the further and further we go back, the more that it was relied on the photographer, the professional or amateur photographer, to document history. The further you go back, no one had cameras other than the professional or the passionate hobbyist. You go further, and then the box brownie came out, and Leicas come out, and more 35mm cameras became available to the public to take happy snaps. And so as technology developed, the photographer's role to document history became more, it was less solely on them, and more they became the artists that documented history, but there was also just random public documenting history as well, because they were there at the time and they had a camera with them. And then that's accelerated like this with phones, to the point where now everyone on the planet basically has a camera with them all the time to document history when something happens. So I'm often thinking, like, what is the role of the photographer now and into the future when it comes to documenting history?
It's a good question.
Well, what's the role? The role is to keep doing it, and to keep, photographing what they're interested in, doing it in as well as they can. Yes, I mean, I don't know how a historian will cut through the visual clutter, and how they'll cut through that visual clutter in 100 years' time, if we're all still here. I won't be. Having said that, you guys will probably be here in 100 years.
Our heads will be floating in glass jars.
What are they going to find that's interesting? There is so much to photograph. It's up to individuals to, I guess, who are interested in being documentary photographers, to find the subjects that turn them on, and to chase them down, and to do not just one good photograph, but a series. I remember a photographer, Carolyn John, saying to me once that you needed to have a series of photos, and there's a lot of truth in that. Everybody can take a good photograph, but go and take 20 good photos on the same subject, and all of a sudden you're taxing yourself. And I think, I guess the early projects I fell into was Australian politics. Most people stick their hand down their throat at these days. But Australian politics, because I was born of that generation, that Vietnam War generation. We didn't want to go to Vietnam. We protested on the streets, and then Whitlam came in, and then Whitlam was thrown out by the Liberals and the Governor General in '75, and it was a very political generation. So I was naturally interested in politics from a very early age. I had a girlfriend at college. I went to Paran College. I studied photography there in the 70s. And my girlfriend at the time had her parents had a property, and we went up to photograph sharing one day. I walked into a shed. I took some photos. And here I am 55 years later, still walking into sheds. Not 50 years later, still taking photographs. You think I would have got it right by now, but I haven't.
I don't think any of us ever get it truly 100% right. And I think that's the joy of the process, is that we're always pursuing that little bit of difference, that little edge.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's important to have more than one project going if you're a documentary photographer. I've been doing power stations, and I've been doing transplants, organ transplants. I mean, the day's going to come when deceased organ donor transplants don't happen, for example, and, you know, you're going to show a photograph to a kid and you're going to say, oh, back in the day we used to take organs from dead bodies and put them into other people. And the kid will go, oh, yuck, you know, because, you know, they'll be growing from cell structures. They're already doing scientific work to grow from cell structures. There's work going on now with injecting stem cells into the liver and pancreas to stop diabetics having diabetes. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. We're living in a medical revolution. I think I might have said that in the last podcast when we were talking about kidney transplants, but we're living in there's a documentary project, the medical revolution. It's a very hard one to do because everything's happening at a cellular level. But to photograph the people and the process, I think that's an interesting project. Climate change is an interesting project. Hyper-partisan politics is an interesting thing. Mm-hmm. You know, what's been going on. There's you know, what the traditional media covers isn't what's necessarily happening in life, and that's why documentary photography is so important.
And I wonder, Andrew, sorry, I just wanted to ask whether you think, you know, we've often talked about AI on the show and how that's changing the face of creativity, really. That, you know, instead of going out and taking a photo, now you can just put in a text prompt and refine what the machine chooses to give you. Is that in that world that we're moving into, where more and more AI is used for, you know, creating images, for example, is that where the role of traditional photography is even more important, that we do have to showcase what is real?
My brother used to say, have this saying, believe nothing you hear and only half of what you see. And of course, these days it's believe nothing of what you hear and nothing of what you see. Yeah. And Facebook is full of shit at the moment of historical photos colorized. But more likely you'll see, oh, here's a photograph of the painter Degas moving his studio in Paris and loading paintings onto a dray. And people go, you know, it's just made up by an AI generator. And there's this diffusion of the truth.
Yeah.
I think from a documentary and from a reportage point of view, governments need to protect us. They need to say to AI generators and Facebook and Instagram, we can't have this on unless it's labelled, because people are just sitting there looking at these videos of train crashes and plane crashes and, you know, whatever, and going, oh, this is the truth. I mean, Charlie Kirk's unfortunate assassination. You know, I'm not going to get involved in who he was and what he was, but I think people have kind of grabbed hold of that issue for their own purposes, political, left or right. But you're starting to see posts on Facebook with Bob Dylan's, you know, talking about how sad it was about Charlie Kirk or Mick Jagger, or you know, it's all shit. Exactly, it is all shit, and people are sitting there, just
reading it.
I think Marshall McLuhan used to say, "News is entertainment," and it is becoming entertainment. And if people are so zombied out watching this crap and they're not actually looking at what is being done to them by their governments and everything else, you know, I think, you know, beware. I mean, governments should be protecting people. They should be protecting people from bad messaging and from fake posting, certainly from fakes. There's never been more need to have documentary and truthful photography out there.
Yeah,
that's what I was about to say. Is I guess to the role of the documentary photographer going forward is to, I guess, be truth tellers, record history and be truth tellers, because you're right, you know, governments could legislate to protect and do all that kind of thing, but you can also try to combat with the truth, with your own. If you have a passion in a certain area and you're seeing just shit getting posted that's untrue, and you've got work that can, you know, push back against that, that helps. That's good. It's a worthy project to take up.
Yeah.
It's worthy, but it'll never pay any bills.
No, probably not.
You know, I'm just going to be blunt about that. If there's any young guys and girls out there who are thinking of doing it, do it. Don't. I'm not saying don't do it, but don't expect to get rich from it. I mean, it was always difficult. I mean, you know, I had to do corporate photography and all sorts of other things to get by over the years, but you've got to do it because you believe in it. And if you believe in it, you just go out, get your ass out of bed early and get out on the road. Go out of the city, get out of Brunswick and Carlton and head out in the country, head out into the suburbs, go out of your comfort zone and start looking at what's going on. That's where you're going to find the real Australia. Talk to people who, you know, mightn't be have the same political sensibilities as all your friends that you drink coffee with every morning. Go and talk to, if you're in the inner suburbs, go and talk to some farmers. Most of them are voting National Country Party, but, you know, they're all very nice people. They've all got opinions, and they're all, you know, they all see things from their own perspective. You know, they see, you know, they talk to other farmers, they talk to other people, and, you know, and there's your story. Start photographing them. Start and make a story. You don't have to have, you know, I'm doing a lot of stuff on the coal industry, for example. Well, I think personally, I think coal's coming to an end, and I think it's time to move on. But that's not a reason not to photograph it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Because
if it does come to an end, we want a record of how it ended.
Absolutely.
An accurate record.
Absolutely.
We want imagery.
And that's, yeah.
And so you're not, your work, when you're documenting coal, you're not going there trying to make it look bad. You know, like you're not going there with a purpose saying, oh, well, you know, coal's probably coming to an end. We probably need to move towards a more greener solution. So I'm going to go there and I'm going to try and document this in a way that makes it look terrible and dirty. And you know what I mean? You're going there documenting it for what it is. People,
I'm photographing it how it is. And look, you know, brown coal in the Latrobe Valley, it is, look, you know, it's fine and dusty and it gets on everything and it does look grimy and dirty, but that is the way it is. I'm not, you know, and, you know, on cold mornings, there's a hell of a lot of steam coming out of the turbines and all that sort of thing. But I mean, I think there's visual beauty in that grime. I think they look fantastic, you know?
Yeah.
I like actually engineering design and the structure and the form, and it's a little bit like architectural photography, a lot of the work I've done. I'll just say that if anyone wants to see any of that work, I know you've put some links up, but andrewchapmanphotography.com, no .au, andrewchapmanphotography.com, and go to photographs, and you'll see the slow, inevitable death of coal. There we go.
So you go there, and you can.
So we got death of coal.
Yep.
And there you go. So, you know, I mean, I think some of those photos are kind of interesting. That's the old Hazelwood. Now that plant's been gone now. I'm trying to get it right. About 2018, I think it came down. So that's 7 years ago. It doesn't exist. If you go there now, all this. Look at that.
I love that shot. That
looks
like a Russian nuclear.
It is, isn't it?
Station or something.
It's the
amazing.
Nuclear plant from The Simpsons. A lot of people
really
say.
is. Yeah, it is too.
And it's just so beautiful. Just so beautiful.
That is beautiful.
And you know, I didn't move the notebook. I didn't touch anything. I just went in and I photographed it like it is. I love the lights at the top, actually. I reckon a steel.
yeah.
You could have that in your studio, guys. I think that'd be a really nice lighting setup.
That would be my ultimate podcast studio. I would never leave that. If that was my backdrop and I just sat in that chair and had a microphone, that would be amazing.
We couldn't shut you up.
I don't know. This is the actual. This is a power station simulator, and I did suggest to them when they were about to demolish the plant that they ring up ScienceWorks and offer it to them, because you know, not only is it a cool looking display, but they had breadboard circuitry, and they could actually make design modifications and put them on these circuits. And, you know, for people into electronics, it would have been really fascinating. But I got dragged through. I was very lucky. Remember we talked right at the beginning about passionate people. Well, I had a guy called Mark Richards, who was one of the union delegates from the Mining Energy Union, and he was just passionate about the plant. He'd done his apprenticeship there and been brought up with all that stuff, and he dragged me. I mean, my feet aren't very good and I can't walk very fast, and he dragged me for 5 days around this plant. Oh, come on, you got to hurry up, you got to get this, you got to get that. And we went at breakneck speed. We did about 2,500 shots, and I loved it. It just about wiped me out physically, but you know, I was waiting for a kidney transplant at the time. But you know, look at this stuff. That's very dark, that photo. Sorry, where I took it was incredibly dark. It's about a 20 or 30 second exposure, and that's the old Morwell power station. But you know, it's all going. It's either going or gone. Yeah. And you know, it's a great visual record. You know, I love that photo.
Yeah, same.
Okay,
but and it's like these nautilus shells, and the big, huge pumps. So for every ton of coal they pump out of the open cut, they've got to pump out of a ton of water. So pumps are very, very important things in power stations. And that next shot, I think, that's the old Hazelwood station. That's about 13 stories high, and you see the orange. The orange walls there, they're made of what they call S6 asbestos. It's like corrugated asbestos sheeting. And, you know, it had been installed in the 1960s, built in the 1960s when asbestos wasn't seen as an issue. And it was basically decaying. And if you got up close to it, there's tiny little holes and stuff. And, you know, there's bits of dust would come off these sheets of asbestos, and the power station had been, I think it had been slated to close in about 2010, and it was 2016 when I was photographing it, I think, or 2017, and you know, there were some conservative politicians going, oh well, I think we can keep this going for another 10 years, and so and it's like, well. So you're happy for workers to be working in an environment where there's bits of asbestos flying around and getting in your lungs, are you? You know, and it's, you know, you get the political rhetoric, and then there's the reality, you know.
Yeah.
That photo's also using light. You know, I said about using the light. I'm always looking for what the clouds are doing. In any photo, I'm always looking at what the clouds are doing, and I'm looking at what the light's doing. And, you know, if you went there in the middle of the day, it'd be a nothing photo.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah, you got to work for it. This doesn't just happen. It wasn't. You weren't just strolling past and went, oh, there's one, click.
I'm always at a location at the beginning of the day. Start with the beginning of the day, and often before the sun's up. Lesson number one for young photographers who like to sleep in: learn to get out of bed early.
Yep.
Discipline. Get out of bed early, because great photos happen in great light. The beginning of the day is often the quiet time. I love this photo here. Can we go back one?
This one? Yeah.
Yeah, so there's the generators, and they're so clapped out. They've got a couple of fans.
Bit of emergency tape.
I was going to say, don't worry though. The tape is there so that you don't trip over the cord that's linking the two fans. That's
And like I said, you know, I mean, I find these photos visually beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, is it a negative view of the power industry? No, it's an honest view of the power industry. It's not a negative view. I don't think there's a worker there who'd say, that's not what it was like, because it is what it's like. And the places are kind of devoid of a lot of people. There's no people in the odd one or two people walking around, but you know, there's not a lot of people there. So you know, it was a great opportunity to photograph all that stuff, and having that guy Mark Richards so passionate, you know.
Yeah,
I got to say something about. Look, I'll go back one.
This one?
Yeah, that one there. That shot at like 2000 ISO, and it's at f4 on a 10-24 Fuji lens on my X Pro 2, and it is so sharp. I can't believe how sharp that image is. I've blown it up a metre wide, and you know, if you were shooting in the 90s with a 5.4 camera and got that quality, you'd be pretty bloody happy, you know.
Yeah.
What modern digital can deliver, and you know, I'm talking about Fuji here, fine, but you know, you could do it on a Canon or a Nikon or a Sony or a whatever.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not.
But that 10-24 is known for its sharpness.
It is amazing.
The original, yeah.
And you know, I know well the aforementioned Noel Butcher, but also my recently departed good friend Jamie Messier. You know, we all love that lens. We used to shoot a lot of work with that 10-24. I still do. I've got total confidence. If I'm shooting, a lot of the transplant work shot in with that lens.
Yeah.
And it's just, you just know you can put it at f4 wide open and it'll just deliver amazing results.
Very cool.
It's I love this work.
Yeah.
I love this one here.
Just love Booth.
Love Booth. It's such working class humour, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And it's also about the light. You know, there was a window to the left, and there's one of those old blue tarps, plastic tarps, and it's just blued up the whole image as it comes in. And you know, it's just a very simple photo. It's a very quiet photograph, the way I look at it. And I'd be happy with that grungy, dirty photo on my wall. I haven't got it, having said that, but you know, I've done a few prints of it. It looks really beautiful.
Yeah. The no smoking sign particularly pops with and then everything else being blue. It's really got that cinematic
orange.
And it works. Definitely works. Yeah, so cool.
So you know, that's just one of the documentary series I've done. I'd probably like to do a little bit more, but I have an issue with my legs. I got into Loy Yang Power Station this year and did some photographs, but I think it's coming to a conclusion just because my legs won't carry me around the plants that easy. I'll see if I can manage one more crack at it. You know, but it's coming to a conclusion. My project on transplants, I've got the potential to do a heart transplant and a lung transplant later this year, early next year. That's being worked on with a major hospital in Melbourne. And then I'm going to do stem cell transplants into the pancreas that we're talking about to show the modern face of transplantation, and I think that will kind of come to a conclusion as well. I've got another project on headshots and close-ups and portraits, which I've been doing. That just started out of COVID, and I'll find something new to do. I'll find another project to do.
I've got two questions. Which one first? First of all, what advice do you have for people? You said get out of your comfort zone, just find something that lights you up, and follow that. Do you have any advice, any practical advice for, other than just going to a different suburb or something like that, to find a subject that lights you up, that you can dig into the way that you do with these projects?
Well, what interests any individual is, it could be dressmaking. It could be photographs of insects with pins through them in a collection in a museum. Find what turns you on for a start, and then I think the advice would be, when you go somewhere, I think it's really good, particularly if you're a young photographer, to say a couple of things: who you are, what you're doing, and what you want. Hi, my name's Andrew Chapman. I'm a documentary photographer. I'm photographing power stations, so I'd like to get in and photograph your lawn power station or whatever. And people are people are kind of more relaxed than if you just turn up with a camera. I know it sounds very basic, but just let people know what you're doing. Most people, if you're interested, you can be, hi, I'm a third year student at RMIT. I want to photograph commercial fishing off lobster fishing down off Port Campbell. Is there any chance I can come out on the boat with you guys? Most people will say, sure, come on out. It's good. You don't get seasick, do you? Or blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, you're a third year student and you're out on a fishing trawler out off the coast you're floating around underneath the 12 Apostles looking for lobsters or whatever. And they're pulling up big lobsters, and you're getting the sun's coming up and it's coming across, and you're getting photos. Oh, I wish I was there already. Look.
Yeah, I was like, this sounds great. Maybe I could document lobster fishing.
Some people will tell you, sorry, can't do it, it's not possible, or we don't want you. But there's always someone who will say, yeah, that's fine, come along. And, it doesn't have to be something as elaborate as that. But I've always said that as a photographer, and as either a news or a documentary photographer, you get the front row seat to what's going on. If you love footy, you can be sitting, if you're good enough and you work up to it, you can be sitting on the ground at the MCG. You're probably not even watching the game because you're working your ass off so hard, of course, mind you, but you can be there, if you're interested in sharing sheds, you can be in amongst the action. If you're interested in the fashion shows or whatever it is, you can be there. You can go onto people's properties. They'll invite you onto their properties. They will help you. They will show you around. People are incredibly generous, Occasionally someone will say, piss off. Now, I've got to say that it's harder when you're younger. Now, these days, like going into a wool shed or somewhere, I just say I'm the photographer who did wool sheds, and they all go, come in. So it's getting a little bit easier. And, if you're going to go and photograph, say, the cattle auctions, you really need to go and speak to someone there these days, because there are so many protests and people taking photos of animal cruelty. They're all hyper worried about it. But if you say, look, I'm interested in just photographing this because I'm interested in the industry, blah, blah, blah. And, I'm not here to supply photos to Peter or whatever the organisation is. I'm not, if protest photography is your thing, that I'm not saying don't do that either, but I'm just talking. You got to be rational about how you go about doing it, Sorry, Justin, but back in the day, you wanted to get up on top of a building in Melbourne. This is pre 9/11, you just used to ring up the building management and they'd let you get up on the roof and they'd leave you up there for an hour at sunrise or sunset, and you'd shoot it and come down and say thanks. So that was great. It did change a bit with 9/11.
Yeah.
But, things are possible.
Yeah, it opens doors and can enrich your life, I guess. Like you say, those experiences. I'm thinking back while you were saying about, that fishing for lobsters sounds beautiful, the way that you described it. And I was thinking back about some of the experiences that I've had taking photos are some of the best experiences of my life, and they wouldn't have happened if I didn't follow that thread that led me to that situation where you look around, you're like, wow, this is pretty crazy.
Yeah. Like,
so-
I guess a bit of advice is do a road trip.
Yeah.
Get out of your comfort zone. Go somewhere you haven't been. Go to some country towns. Go the back of New South Wales. There's a myriad of towns up there that is just brilliant to travel through. Queensland's the same, up to Bacolden and Longreach and Hewenden. There's all sorts of places that are great. And most of them are on sealed roads. From Melbourne, a couple of days reasonable driving, you can be in the Flinders Ranges. Go with a couple of mates. You've got a couple of mates who are photographers. Get in the car and go for a road trip.
Yeah.
And, the beautiful thing, look, when you're married, you go on a road trip and you're going along and you just say, I've just got to stop and take a photo of that tree over there. So you stop and take the photo of the tree. And about 5 kilometres up the road, I've just got to photograph a rock, okay. Yeah, okay, if you go and do that. By about the third or fourth time, the eyes are rolling pretty heavily, and you've got to negotiate some difficult spaces. When you travel with a fellow photographer, I mean, you can travel by yourself, of course, if you want. But when you travel with a fellow photographer, the golden rule is if that photographer wants to stop for a shot, you stop for the shot. And if they're going to take half an hour of it, you let them take half an hour of it. No pressure, because that's the beauty of it. And, I travel a lot with Noel Butcher. And, we've been to Western Australia and back, He won't let me play Bob Dylan in the car. That's the only problem. But look, we have some great. We're still talking to each other after driving to Western Australia and back. And we get some great shots along the road. Out at dawn, and you're on the Nullarbor, and there's mist across the Nullarbor at sun. At just pre-dawn. And then there's a giant wedgetail sitting there eating roadkill first thing in the morning, and all these magic things, you just got to be there.
Yep.
What's the saying? 90% of a good photo is being there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just got to check in with the chat because they're loving it. Noel Butcher says, unbelievable. Second time today that I agree with Andrew. Just ask about photographing stuff. Worst case scenario, they say no.
Yeah.
Great advice. Matt Palmer, Matt Talks Photography from Alpine Light Gallery in Bright says, if you show genuine interest and approach things professionally with gratitude, the answer is more often yes.
Mm.
And I might add to that, Matt, that, don't enter somebody's property without asking for permission.
Yeah.
Don't think because there's a fence there you can just climb it and walk in.
Yeah.
I can't say I've always adhered to that, but use that as the golden rule. I had to jump a fence once when there was a rainbow behind a shearing shed down in the Western District, and the only angle was to jump the fence. And if I went and got permission, there would be no rainbow there by the time I got permission. And it was an exceptional circumstances. But people don't like you. You probably don't like people coming, waltzing in and doing a photo shoot in your front yard, and it doesn't matter if it's a 6,000 acre property, it's still somebody's property. they're generally really happy to let you in or look around or whatever. You know?
Yeah. Glenn Lavender, Creative Photo Workshop, says, almost makes me want to be a photographer. I think you should give it a go, Glenn.
Yeah.
You might like
Let me know
it.
if you need a camera.
Yeah.
I know people.
LTK Photo says, this is great advice. Rodney Nicholson, loving this. And finally, Bruce Moyle, traveling with other photographers is the only way to go.
Yep.
Well, traveling with other or doing projects with other photographers is interesting because many years ago I started a group in Melbourne called the MAC Group, and which was many Australian photographers, and we've done a lot of big group projects where we'd bring 30 photographers to a country town and we'd photograph it. We did the town of Hay in New South Wales a couple of times, St Arnaud. We did a little project at Ballarat, Wonthaggi, and then we did a project in Melbourne called Little Big Town. So a lot of photographers can cover an area quite well.
Yeah.
That morphed into doing a series of books with my publisher, the 10 Bag Press. If you have a look at 10bagpress.com.au, you can see some of the books. Adam McNichol, the proprietor there, we've done. We started with a book on the Mallee, and we brought 5 photographers to that book because we needed to cover it in a reasonable short period of time. And 5 photographers just went up on their own time, in their own way, sometimes travelling together. The first trip we did, I went with the recently departed photographer Jamie Messiah, and we went up to Rainbow, and we just spent a couple of days going around, and we got some great shots. And you know, the Mallee book had been Adam's thought bubble for a couple of years, and you know, we were busting to do a project at the time, and I said to Jamie, or Jamie might have said to me, he said, "Oh, stuff this weight around. Let's just go and start it." And off we went, and we just got in the car and we drove, and we had a great, you know, Jamie didn't mind Bob Dylan, you know, in the car. So, you know, we had a great couple of days. We had, you know, great music, and you know, we gas bag, we meet people, and it was great. And we had 5 photographers on there. So we had Jamie Messiah, Noel Butcher, myself, Melanie Faith Dove, who's a great photographer. She came on board for that. And who am I leaving out? I'm leaving someone out. Oh God, someone's going to kill me later. I'll come back to that. And then we went to the Wimmera book, and we brought David Callow in on that, and Erin Jonathan, who'd been the chief photographer for the Fin Review back in the day. What I did is I put together teams of photographers who I knew would deliver.
Yeah.
And were self-motivated to go out. Because a lot of people, they chew the fat and they, you know, someone I knew, a photographer named Liz Healy, she once said, "You've got to burn to want to be a photographer." And that fire is still burning in me. And I try to look for the photographers who are burning to want to be a photographer. I'll bring that book over, so I'll get the name of. Don't go away.
We'll stay here. Well, he's
we're always here.
Hang on, while he's over there, we'll just bring this up. Hang on. These are some of the Mallee shots.
I'm coming.
Take your time. We're looking at your photos. I love this stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, from Menangatang.
That sounds like a made-up word.
Yeah.
There we go. Got them both. Okay, so firstly, who did I leave out? I must have left Erin out on that. Now, Erin had been burnt out at the time from working in city newspapers, and she'd gone up to New South Wales and was growing organic sultanas at a place called Goodnight. And I said, Adam had run into her, the publisher, and I said, yeah, join the team, come down, take some photographs. And she said, oh, I'm only going to do landscapes. I'm not doing any people. I said, well, you do what you want. That's fine. So she came along, took some photos the first weekend, went up to the Witcher-proof Cup, met all these people who took her out on the, on the car with the trotting horses following and all sorts of things. And she came back with a swag of people shots. So it was kind of fun. It was kind of fun, and relaunched her photographic work too. She started doing freelance work for The Guardian and The Age. And she hadn't taken photos for quite a few years. So that's the Mallee.
Mm.
And that's the Wimmera. And I'd like to show you, I'm just looking to make sure I haven't forgotten anyone there. No, Phil Campbell also, who's the designer, he took a few photos as well. But they're books that we were able to put together fairly quickly. We've just got the Western District due to launch on the 24th of October. So that will be the last of them because we're kind of all running out of energy and some of us have got other things to do, health issues. Unfortunately, Jamie passed away during the Wimmera project 2 years ago. He was a passionate, committed photographer. We're talking about projects and documentary projects. He'd walk the Camino and he'd photographed the Camino beginning to end, and then he'd gone back and photographed a section of it during winter, during snow, walking it in the snow and he'd got some beautiful photographs, hoping to do a book. Unfortunately, the book never got off the ground. It was a real shame. But he did do a book called Little Big Town on all the laneways and small streets of Melbourne, and that was a lovely book. A great photographer. And, when you see somebody who's got so much burn to be that photographer and to get out and do it, and they get cancer and, it's very difficult watching such a creative soul fade away, really. There's no other word for it, because this person had so much to contribute and had so much burn to do it, and talent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a tragic loss. And obviously we're sorry for your loss of a friend. Someone who you've created records of history and areas of Australia that most of us don't even think about. So it's a wonderful legacy. It's just a pity it has to come at such a cost.
Well, I think that sort of thing happens to most of us, doesn't it?
Yeah, apparently. I've heard. Yeah, I've heard.
I mean, death and taxes, I mean, I feel it very acutely at my age and with my health record, I've got to say, which is probably part of the drive to finish off projects, to do the book, Fill the Frame. To leave a record, some photographers die and they leave a tub of hard drives, or boxes of prints, and the family, they're not archivists. They don't know what to do with them. And it's with Jamie, we did a beautiful little book and we professionally designed it and probably did 100, 200 copies, and there was something for people to have, there was a record of its existence, and that's kind of important, I was here sort of thing. I mean, why else are you doing it?
Yeah, it's a very good point. And often we see stories, news stories and, social media stuff about how there were often these photographers who were prolific in their period of time and in the socio-economic space that they occupied. And then we come across these archives of images and discover that actually, they created the most comprehensive record of what was going on in that time and place, but no one knew about them because someone's found a box of old film, you know, or whatever it may be. And it is, you know, and I think it comes back to that whole thing of printing too, and obviously books, because you're right, we do keep all of our images electronically on hard drives, and at some point in time they're going to fail, or they're going to disappear, or someone's going to chuck them out on your behalf after you're gone. It is a conundrum.
I think that certainly with professional photographers, but any photographer it can apply to, I think they ought to have a think about their archive and what they've got, and put together their best 100 photographs. And say to someone, look, if I go, this is, can you give this to the State Library or National Gallery or whatever sort of work you're doing, that they can have it. But not only pick your top 100 photographs, but it's really, really important, and this is where a lot of photographers are incredibly lazy, to put the file, the metadata on the photograph.
Yeah.
Who, what, why, when. You can see an important photograph, but if it's just a photograph in 20 years' time, and you go, I wonder where that was, I wonder who that person was, and then then you can say it was Rodney Smith tending a paddock of melons in the Wimmera at Horsham in 1997.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, there's much more of a story, and you can in fact put up more of a story than that. A lot of photographers don't want to strip that information in, and at the very least, when you're importing some images into your computer, you should have a copyright and a date. Well, the date will be on the metadata of a digital photograph, of course, but if it's film, you've got to add that. But, put your copyright and your address, so at least your details there. Now, you can have a metadata template on import, and it's so easy at import to just put that in, but then add, photographs of Hazelwood Power Station, 3 months before it's due to be demolished.
Yeah.
Okay.
Last week we had obviously Michael Coyne on the show, and as part of every interview, I write a short form blog, and Michael supplied us with a number of his image JPEG files, but he also provided a list of what the number of each photo was, and the caption for each photo, and it just elevated the storytelling experience of viewing his images so much. I mean, they're remarkable images to begin with. We're seeing glimpses into a time and a place that most Westerners don't know about, and then to have a short, like Michael's interpretation of what this story is, it just added so much. Whereas in the future, without that, we lose a big chunk of context.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I would say to anyone who's a documentary photographer, get into the habit of doing it. I mean, I've got a couple of photos, very early photographs of, there's one particularly of an old guy in a car on Anzac Day, and it's a beautiful image, but I kind of always wish I knew who the guy was, but I was too lazy to get out a notebook and say, oh, can I get your name? And it wasn't until I'd started working with newspapers a year or two later that I started realising the importance of getting names and details. And, you can have some wonderful chats to the people you photograph, and everybody's got a story.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a story, and some you find out some of the most amazing things.
Indeed.
I can't stop soaking this stuff in. All right, I have a question. This is like a masterclass on documentary photography. I have a question. So you mentioned before, always have multiple projects on the go.
Yep.
Why?
Oh, holy dooly! You asked me a question I can't readily think of an answer for. I just always has. Look, I guess. Well, I wasn't going to just stick to photographing wool sheds and shearers, which was probably one of my early projects, because I wasn't in the country every week. I was a city person, and I was interested in politics. So, I just turn up and take photographs, that sort of thing. So I'd make sure I was doing that. I was always just taking general shots and experimenting. I mean, I mentioned in one of the essays, the Paul Kelly song, I've done all the dumb things. I was always shooting and making mistakes.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just photograph because I like the look of something, because I like the light, the way the light fell on it. And, when I say slow starter, I am a slow starter. I just learnt very slowly, A child touches a hot flame, it learns not to touch the hot flame again, and, I've just learnt from mistakes. I've learnt from things. Sorry, I'm not really answering your question here, Justin. But
that's okay. I was just curious as to why.
I learned to do projects as an idea, as a concept, a while ago, and I'm always looking. It's very hard as a photographer to go, okay, I'm going to photograph F.J. Holden's one day. Okay, so I'm going to photograph F.J. Holden's one day. This goes on and on and on. And eventually you see an F.J. Holden and the light is just perfect, and it's decrepit, it's sitting in a paddock, and you go and take a photo and you get one photo, there you go. And then I'm going to photograph F.J. Holden's one day. I'm going to, and nothing happens because you don't make it happen. And then you go out and you get a second one, you just come across a second one. And you get another good photo. And then all of a sudden you're starting to get a collection. By the third time you're getting a collection. And then you're actively looking for it. You're getting a bit more excited. You're going out and saying, anyone who's got an F.J. Holden sitting around, and or whatever the subject is. Most photographers are afraid to start projects. They're scared of failure. Australia, the land of epic failure. That's a Rod Quantock saying, I think. It's not my saying, but I love it. But we are. Aren't you scared when you go to start a project it mightn't work out and you'll just put it on the shelf? I bet you most photographers listening out there have been in that boat. And, we're all scared of failure. But once you get one or two photos together and you start hooking it, and then you can start feeling more, and it might just, I say to people, you're walking along and you see a nice photograph of a butterfly with light coming through it, so its wings are translucent. You get in there, you get the photograph, and then 2 weeks later you see another butterfly and it's sitting up on a tree, and you take a photo and it looks great, and then you're looking for butterflies after that, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're a collector, and we're all collectors as photographers. And it's finding those collections, and those collections become the series. So, if I'd walked into that first shearing shed and I didn't get anything, I probably wouldn't be here now. Probably it's probably that simple. But I walked in and the light was great. I got a couple of great photos, and if you go, okay, let's have a look there now. I'm just looking. There's one there. The two guys right in the middle. There's two guys sitting on the floor. One's got his hand up.
This one?
Okay. First shearing shed I ever went into, 1975 or 6 at Pyalong in central Victoria. And I got this photo, and it's quite a lovely photo. I got 2 or 3 others that day. And that's what got me going. And then somebody, if you go back to the main body of work there, somebody had a shearing shed down in the Western District. And where's the one of the windmill? Is it there? Can we go up or down a bit? Yeah, the top left, the blades. I went to this shearing shed, Mount Hess, down near Winchelsea, and I went down. You know, like I said about getting places early, we went to get there at dawn, and we left with the designer. I was with a designer whose family owned the property, and we drove in the dark in winter down to Winchelsea from Melbourne, and it was foggy and a bit of rain. I thought, why am I going? Why am I doing this? It's going to be terrible. It's going to be terrible. And we got down there, and the fog lifted, and the sun was out. This is just right on sunrise, and I saw the windmill, and I thought, I'll climb the windmill. Something I can't do today, I might add. Climbed up the windmill, held on with my left hand, and leaned back over with the camera in one hand and took the shot, and it just fell into place. It's such an iconic Australian photograph, I think.
Yeah.
You know,
it really
and
is.
I was just, I wasn't lucky to get it. I worked it out and did it. There's other shots there. If you go back to there's the one of the shearer's backside, which is where? Yeah, that's the one. Again, I'm just photographing everything I saw. That's a shearer called Neil Dunstan down at Foster in Gippsland, and he's wearing the old traditional bag boots. You see, they're made of Hessian bags, and he's got the scrawniest frame, and it's just a back-breaking job, but it's kind of a really iconic shearing shot, and the light's right. I'm fortunate that the light's right. Shearing sheds are really interesting places for light. You get a lot of really nice things happening in there.
Yeah.
How where is it? Speaking of light, how many attempts did you take to get this shot?
Only a couple of attempts. It's a funny thing. I just fluked it. I think I just fluked it, and a lot of shearers, the people in the wool industry, they love that shot.
That's awesome.
I've tried to replicate it and failed a lot of times.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes it just, what do they say? Sometimes photographs just come to you. You don't have to do anything. Well, you do have to do some things, but they just land in your lap. And other times you bust your ass and you get nothing, and that's the way photography is, Most photographers get stressed out. Most of them are anxious, and it's like that story. That's a nice photo. It's like that story of the duck on the water, and it looks so calm, but underneath its legs are paddling like crap.
Yeah.
And what I do like about working for myself is I don't. When you're working commercially, you've got that expectation. You're only as good as your last job, and you've got to make every job work. When you're shooting for yourself, it doesn't matter so much. And my life's been a lot better since around about 2000, when I got hemochromatosis, which is an iron overload condition that led to my health trajectory. But when I got that, I realised I probably only had a few years to live, which was nearly true. And I just went, I'm not going to photograph shit I don't like photographing. I'm not going to photograph corporate headshots. I'm not, I'd paid off the mortgage. The kids were through school just about. I said, I'm going to just photograph what I want to do. And that was the curve of pain financially. But I was a lot happier.
Yeah.
I was a hell of a lot happier. And I'd say to any commercial photographer out there, remember why you probably got into it, which was because you were passionate about it. Some get into it and then it just becomes a job. And if that is you, start looking for a personal project that you are doing for you, for nobody else. And it will make you a lot happier. your clients will look at you and go, oh, he's the sort of guy who's just doing it anyway, where he's not getting paid. He's out there, he's really keen. And I think it has a rub off on your commercial work anyway. And, just stay passionate.
That's great advice.
Solid advice. Absolutely.
We do. I know. I find,
I think
find it hard.
I think at this stage I need to show you another camera.
Yes, please.
Rambling on. This is this is one for my film project next year. This is a Kodak. I've got to remember how to operate this. My grandfather bought this in 1913 before he went to the North African desert as a gold mining engineer. Probably part of the British stealing the assets of all the third world countries in the world, but we won't go there. But the beauty about these cameras, a lot of these cameras you buy, they take the old 620 film, which is no longer manufactured. But this one takes 120 film, which you can still commercially buy. So when I get my film making going, my film project going, I'm going to use that and as one of the cameras. So I've got that, and it's over in the drawer. I haven't actually pulled it out to show, but I've got a little Kodak Retina that belonged to my other grandfather. So I've got my two grandfathers' cameras here. But that one's an absolute cracker. So he went gold mining and that. And about a year after the First World War started, it took so long for the information to get to him. He's so remote. I think it was a year, but it might have been not quite that long. They found out the war was on, so they scurried back to London. And the War Office said, oh, you've got experience in North Africa, we're sending you back. So they went back to London and then got on the ship and went back to North Africa during the First World War. So that's a lovely little piece of technology. I mean, Kodak really revolutionised photography for so many people. You know, they had that, you take it, we'll do the rest sort of philosophy where, they'd take the film and sometimes I think they took the camera as well. And everything came back and there were beautiful size negatives. So you had really good photos. Well, one of the beautiful thing about an old photograph is you can enlarge it up. And, it will go as far as you want. You can enlarge it up to the old parlance 16 by 20 inches, which is bigger than A3. And it'll still maintain that. Now, you can't do that necessarily with a digital photo because it'll pixelate as it goes up. So unless you've got the original file, you're kind of stuck. That's one of the beauties of old photographs.
Yep. Most definitely. Did you ask a question, Justin? I was going to jump to some comments, but
let's do some comments.
All right. Let's. Do you want to drive or you want me to drive?
Hey, you do it. You got
All right.
this.
Cool.
I think you're ready.
Thanks, mate. I'm not ready to control the audio, but we'll get to that. Where are we? We heard from. I'm just trying to catch up where we are with the chat.
Okay.
Oh, that's so rude, you bastard. Let's go back to Noel Butcher. You were talking a little bit earlier about the Mali project and Noel's comment how much he loved it. And that he has allowed Bob Dylan in the car once, but once was enough.
Well, there you go. What can you say about a heathen like that? No, really.
Yeah. Bruce Moore's in the chat. G'day, Bruce. He's talking about that's massive about some of the work you've been doing. And most recently, Lucinda Goodwin has joined us.
Hey, Lucinda.
The personal project is something I needed to be reminded of. Yeah, I think we all need that reminder.
Absolutely, Lucinda. You need to, don't delay, start. And don't be scared of failure. Just start.
Yep.
And if it doesn't work, get back on the horse.
Yep.
Get back on the horse and start another project. Discipline. I hate to say it, I sound like an old conservative, and I'm certainly not conservative, but, you know, get out of bed early, get out there and do it. If it fails, and I've done shitloads of failure, get back out and keep going, okay?
Yeah.
We do, at some point, we've done show and tell of a few of your cameras. At some point, we need to go through your Fujifilm kit, your modern kit, just because that's what we do on this podcast is pump up Fujifilm. It's just part of it. So at some point, we need to go through that. So I don't want to forget that. I did want to ask you, we haven't spoken about much. We spoke about it on the last podcast. We haven't spoken much about your giving life transplant photography sort of project. But if people want to hear more about that in depth, loop back to the last episode that we did with you, because we sort of dug into that work, looked at some of the images and talked about the origins of it and that kind of thing. Actually, that reminds me. So while we were on the podcast last time talking about that, we discussed if you're in Australia particularly, or whatever country, I'm sure there's different things, how to register to be an organ donor, and just if it's something that you want to, if you have no issue with it, you have to opt in. It's not an opt out.
You
thing.
do
It's
need to opt in,
thing.
and it's very simple. Everybody got their pens ready. You can put a link to it maybe with the program.
I think we've already.
I've got it right here.
We've got
it's donatelife.gov.au and follow
Hassan,
the prompt to register.
Sorry, can you shut that other frame you've got up? Yep.
Yep. Add that, and there.
Thank you.
Oh, look at that! How good is that?
So I'll tell you a little secret that I found out, because I wasn't registered, but you can check pretty easily on this website. But if you actually have in Australia, the Medicare app, and you go in there, you can see your status, and also it's like, if you want to register, it's like 2 boxes. You'd like tick this box, put your license number in, tick another box, hit register, and it's done. It took 15 seconds.
That's right. And the big rider on this is make sure you tell your nearest and dearest what your intentions are, that you've done it. So if, Andrew Chapman's on his last legs on the floor and they come up to Mrs. Chapman and say, we'd like to transplant him. He's a registered donor. And she goes, well, I don't know anything about that. I'm not quite sure. At the last hurdle, you do not want that sort of confusion there. You want a clear pathway to transplantation. And look, on the example of somebody died of liver failure just coming up for 15 years in February, and he was a donor. I know nothing about him. I've never heard from the family or anything, although I've written to them. But, I've had nearly 15 wonderful years, I've seen my kids grow up and settle down. I've seen 4 beautiful granddaughters born. I've seen Donald Trump. I mean, imagine that.
I could have missed it.
Elected president twice.
You wouldn't even know.
Couldn't write about it.
I never want to die because I always want to know what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
I love life. And, this gentleman who died back in 2011 has given me the gift of life that has allowed me to do all those things that I've done, all those books. I mean, I'd published a couple of books before I had the transplant, but, all the woolsheds, everything else since woolsheds has been down to this person. And that, a few years ago, I photographed that project on the pathway to transplantation. I photographed a quite young lady dying at 38 years of age, and her organs were used in 5 life-saving transplants. She was, sadly, her life had come to an end. But, her functional organs were used to allow a lot of other people to get out and have a reasonable life, and it's not just being able to live in. Kidney donors are one of the big ones. There's a lot of people on the kidney list at the moment waiting for a kidney transplant, but it just allows people to have a functional, beautiful life. Leanne Bruin, who I photographed last year getting a kidney from the daisy chain that we talked about in the last project, she's out there doing things. She's enjoying her life. She's not tied to a dialysis machine anymore.
Yeah.
She's not governed by her living room being full of boxes of medical supplies to maintain her dialysis, not being able to get away, not being able to leave home for more than a couple of days. Her life's revolutionised. But it could also be as simple as, have you got the transplant photos there, Greg?
Yep.
Can you, Justin?
You got them up?
Ready to go.
There's one now. Where are we? Yeah, okay. The row where the lady's holding her hand, go to the middle to the little bottle. I call that vision in a bottle. That's a cornea that's awaiting transplantation, that's going to restore sight to a person. Now, we all know as photographers how important sight is. And it's an amazing thing that they can do that, and to watch that happen. They stitch it into the eye. We can maybe the next photos, is that too graphic for people? But you can go along to the next image.
Avert your eyes if you
avert your eyes if you're squeamish.
That's fine.
And they put that in, and then they just they insert that thing in the cornea in the bottle, put it in, put one stitch on, and then the eye pressure holds it in place. And when the operation's finished, a couple of hours later, the person's good to go. And it's an amazing process to watch. Amazing.
That is
and that is sharp, that photo. That's shot with my little Fuji 60mm 2.8 macro, which is a humdinger of a lens. It's one of the original Holy Trinity of lenses they put out with Fuji, and it's not the fastest autofocuser, but hell, when it lands on it, it's as sharp as shit, as they say. Yeah.
It is a beautiful shot. Obviously, it's hard over YouTube. People probably can't see, but you can just go to andrewchapmanphotography.com and you'll find these images under the Giving Life menu. So you just go to photographs. I actually love the way you've laid this website out. So you go to photographs, you've got all of the different projects and themes. But then the other thing that I love that you've done is here you've just got like best of 2023, best of 2024, and then 2025 so far.
Well, hit on 2025. Let's have a look what I'm doing.
I just love that you've got a spot just for, it doesn't matter what particular project it's for. You just plop it on there.
Yeah.
And it's like what I'm up to. I want to do that. I think that's great.
Well, I'm 71. Am I 71? Yeah, 71. And I want to tell people I'm still relevant. I can still take a photo. I think I've taken there's some nice portraits there. The balloon shots are beautiful, though we haven't even talked about ballooning yet.
No.
I've been ballooning.
You've done too many things.
I've done too many. Like I said, you've got so many projects you do. I do quite a lot of, over the years, I've done quite a lot of ballooning with global ballooning, with Balloon Man down in Melbourne. And occasionally with Picture This ballooning, and I just love it. It's a great platform. If you want to get a different view with your camera, get in a balloon, do a flight. It's not cheap, I've got to say, but it doesn't cost me anything. I'm very lucky they let me fly for nothing, but I've been doing it so long with them, but it's worth it. It's worth it for the experience. It's a great thing. If you get the perfect day, and you don't always get a perfect day, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but quite often there's always something to photograph whenever you go.
Gosh, they're just beautiful subjects too, the balloons, having them in the
Oh,
shot. Like, because just the way they light up, the colors, and it's just, yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful industry. It's visually beautiful. It's usually over interesting. I mean, you know, the other thing, there's no shots over Melbourne in this particular one, but you know, you can fly over the CBD, which is, I think, the only major city in the world that you can fly a balloon over the CBD. And do we have that photo? Can we go to ballooning? And
Well, I've got this one, because this is a page from your book.
You know, we came through the buildings, you know, and you know, this is pre-dawn, as you can see, and bang, light lit it up, and there you go. That's the old Moomba balloon, and it's magic moments.
Yeah,
indeed.
Yeah. Do I get shots on every balloon flight that are really, really great? Probably not. But, you know, every few flights, it's just fantastic. And Chris Shorten, one of the pilots, he always sends me little videos of his trips. And he says, oh, you should have been there. Just to stir me, you know.
Yeah.
I love it. I have trouble climbing into the basket these days. They have to put steps there for me to get in. It was very nice in that photo from 2025. Those two balloons. I rang up. It was my 71st birthday weekend. I was up at Hillsville, and I rang young Patterson Saunders, who I've known since he was knee-high to a grasshopper, and he grew up in a ballooning family. He's now a pilot himself, and I wanted to take three of my granddaughters down to just watch the balloons inflate and take off. And he said, "Oh, we're a bit light on passengers tomorrow morning." He said, "Do they want to come for a fly?" And I thought, oh, gee, there's 5, 7, and 9. I thought, well, if they're going to be a bit scared of height or not, you know. I thought, yeah, I said, yeah, that's fine. And their dad came with them. And that was a real joy to be able to take my granddaughters ballooning with me on the balloon. So that was my birthday this year. So that was kind of lucky.
Yeah, that's really nice.
But getting back to that webpage of 2025, you know, those are the things I'm still doing. I've bought a drone.
Oh, cool. What'd you get?
And I bought, well, that's an interesting story. That I'd had I'm trying to think of the brand name of it now. The non-DJI drone, the orange ones, and it was a great drone, a great drone. And then the autofocus just failed. I'll think of its name in a minute. The autofocus started intermittently failing, and I was taking images, and then, you know, sort of 9 out of 10 were out of focus. And anyway, I decided once the DJI Mavic Pro came out, had the 3 lenses, that I'd get that. And that shot that you're looking at there, that's a stitched panoramic of about 5 images. And that is the beauty of that drone, that you can put it on telephoto and do wide shots, and it's pretty good. There's I can't find mistakes in them, so I'm pretty happy like that. You know, and you get that beautiful look at the sky, look at the wave. So I shot it down near Wonthaggi, just north of Wonthaggi in January this year. Again, get up early, go for a drive, you know. Great photos happen in great light. If you're going to go out at midday, well, you'll get the photo, but it won't be half the photo it could be if you're shooting it earlier.
Comment here, I think from Mitchell Mackey.
Tasmania.
Mackey. I can attest Andrew was fantastic at the commercial work. He could put almost any corporate individual at ease. As we're experiencing, he can talk as well as he can shoot.
Thank you very much. If you go, look, go back. Hang on. There's one shot underneath the portrait of my granddaughter. There is a little vertical one of the power station.
Yep.
Shot on iPhone.
Ooh.
Shot on iPhone on RAW. You know,
why? Just did you not have a camera with you, or did you want to?
I had a
see
work
how it went?
experience student with me, and I was just helping her take photographs. In fact, Mitchell's daughter, and you know, I'd taken this shot so many times before, and I just thought, oh well, you know, pull the camera out, bang, and it's so good. I mean, it's so dark, you know, it's really late, and it just worked. It worked beautifully.
Yeah.
Shot it on RAW. I mean, if you'd shot that on color transparency in the 1990s, you'd be pretty happy with it, really.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Very true.
You know, you got to remember where we've come from.
Yeah.
Hop back and go back a year, or maybe 2 years. I think 2024. Can we have a look? Because this is back to 2024. Okay, so the top left one there. This has allowed me to do the power stations again, stitch panoramic. You can't get great views of your lawn power station because they try to look environmental and they stick all these trees in front of them, and the drone just lifts you above the drudgery, and you can get those sort of shots. So that's pretty good. And there's that one again. I mean, that's just as it is, you know. That's sunrise. I mean, I get there, like I say, get out of bed early. You're not going to get that much drama later on. And I was going for drama. Okay. Back to the proof. Back to that's again sunrise.
I love that shot.
You know, that's Noel's actually. He's quite a good printer, and he's done me a wide print of that, which is so wide I haven't worked out how to frame it yet. But it looks fantastic. The open cuts
wide.
actually on the left there. And now there's a shot there. Okay, if you go down the rooftop on about the fourth row on the left, very left, and in fact it's above it too. But this is what a drone can do with shearing sheds. And I mean, look at the intricate roof line there. It's just a beautiful line, and then there's a couple others. If you go back and down, up next line. That's it. And then the following one, it just gives you that little bit of height. Which, I thought there was an aerial of that one there. Yes. That shed in particular is almost impossible to shoot from the ground. It's got like a 3-layer wedding cake kind of hexagonal piece at the back, and then the original red brick was built earlier. It's probably one of the prettiest sheds in Australia, and the drone is just perfect for it. Now there's also that shot. Noel and I were travelling up near Uralla in New South Wales, northern New South Wales, and we get up hour before sunrise, look out the window. It's foggy, it's rainy, it's drizzling, and we go, "Do you think we should go out?" And ultimately we always go, "Well, if we don't go out, we'll never know." Yeah. And we drive down there. It's cloudy, it's terrible, it's cold. We get out there. And within about 15 minutes, the sun starts breaking through the cloud, and the cloud starts breaking up. And just look how beautiful the light is. Yeah. And 90% of a good photos being there. It gets back to that. So I think David Callow, the photographer, great photographer, friend of mine, he had that saying, and it's such a true statement, And we're there, and so 90% of a good photo is being there, and the other 10% is having a drone. I felt a bit guilty spending all the money on a drone, but as you can see, I've landed some pretty strong images with it, and I think I've justified the expense.
Well, not only that, but if it sparks a new, a little bit of that. Not beginner mindset, but like a new
new
thing
road
to
trip.
explore, a new reason to go to maybe the same location again, but explore it with the drone or whatever. Like if it gets you out and about and shooting, it's worth every cent.
Yeah,
Regardless of what you get with it.
I've got no regrets. I've held myself back from buying the Mavic 4.
Same. I've got the 3 Classic. So it doesn't have the 3 lenses. I mainly use it for action sports stuff, and as it is, I crash into trees a lot. So the idea of trying to frame up with the telephoto lens because I do a lot of moving shots for video, and I just end up crashing into trees. So I decided that I didn't need to spend the extra on the 3 lens version of the Mavic 3. But it does, looking at those panoramas, that certainly appeals to me, the idea of being able to stitch with that lens.
That middle lens, the middle length lens, which I think equivalent to about a 70mm on 35mm format, that's a pretty good lens to stitch with. I believe the telly's a little bit soft, but the new one, it's improved. Every model's improved. Everything just gets better and better and better. And the little, the ears and the minis, the Mini Pro's apparently very good.
That new Mini Pro that just come out, that you could do tons with that, and they're a lot smaller and lighter, and
and the ability to shoot portrait or vertical on it on the new ones is also a game changer. As far, I would love to do stitch panoramics in that, and I'd use a lot more of them.
In the portrait.
There's nothing worse than doing a stitch photo and it not quite fitting, not quite working, and it misses somewhere, and I just go, it's just immediately, I'm not going to use it once it fails. I've done one with my probably be my Fuji X-T4 or 5, and my 50 to 140 zoom of Melbourne. It's actually on that zoom page, I think, on that 2023 page, and I'm in a hot air balloon.
Is it this one?
That is, I think, the one. Yeah. So I'm in a hot air balloon over Richmond, and balloons can rotate, and I'm trying to do a stitch, handheld stitch, vertical left to right. Okay. I'm coming across from the left, going across to the right, and Chris, the pilot, he's rotating the balloon anti-clockwise as I'm trying to go clockwise. Oh God, it's like trying to walk up the down escalator,
doesn't feel natural.
But I got it, and it's stitched together so well. I use Capture One software, and there's probably a 2 to 3 meter print sitting in at the CEO's office at the City of Melbourne, and they're very pleased with it.
Yeah, I bet.
Oh wow! How does that happen? Did you just take it there and say, "Here, have this 3 meter print," or did they like?
Oh no!
How did they end up with it?
I get in contact and say, "I've got a photo I think you might be interested in."
Okay.
But they have some of my images in their collection, and I'm very lucky like that. They've got a lot of my old work in at the Central City Library. They've used it. They've used it in the streets around Elizabeth Street. They had them there as a kind of like classic installation. They're great people in at the Cultural Centre there at the City of Melbourne. So that's usually where I start with something like that. Well, probably from a historic point of view, because I've been ballooning over Melbourne since the mid-90s, I've got a lot of low altitude aerial stuff of Melbourne that nobody else, occasionally someone's done a ride in a helicopter, but in a helicopter, you've usually got a ceiling of 1,000 feet and you can't go below that. A hot air balloon can go as low as it's like a yacht, what they say, the right of sail to, a powerboat's got to give away to a yacht because the yacht needs the wind. And if they need to navigate at a various height, they've got to be there. And there's layers of wind in the morning. So you might have a northerly blowing really strong at 2,000 or 3,000 feet, and then you've got a southerly sitting underneath it. And then you get down really low, and in the morning there's the wind, the cool air drains into Port Phillip Bay. So they can come from, say, Northcote, north of Melbourne there, come straight over the top of the city, slow down, get over Government House, and then they drop the balloon to under about, under 300 metres, probably less, probably 150 metres, and it'll just turn right and it'll head down to Albert Park.
Yeah.
And bang. And that's how, ballooning over Melbourne is some of the most difficult ballooning in the world, because you only got a certain amount of places to land. And generally a pilot will have a primary, secondary, tertiary landing area picked out.
Mm. Yep.
If that fails, they're in trouble. But so often you read, balloon almost crashes. They're not crashing. They'll come in low and slow, and occasionally you'll come in and there's an ambulance waiting for you. What are you doing? Oh, someone called and said there's a balloon crashing. Oh, we just landed.
Yep.
Wow. I've never done it. It's on the list for sure, though. It sounds amazing.
Oh, look, do it. If you're a photographer, it's great. And, if you like the city, depending on the, different tracks, you don't always go right over Melbourne. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say you do, but quite often you come close to Melbourne, or occasionally you get a great track where you go over it and you look down on the tops of the buildings. You can, look in people's backyards. It's quite voyeuristic. It's good fun. So go book a flight. They're all great operators, the Melbourne guys. I've done most of my work with Balloon Man and Global Ballooning, and their owners, Chris and Kiff, are very good friends of mine. I flew with these guys. I went up once with these guys in '94, and I've been friends with them ever since. It's just, It's been a wonderful thing.
Let's talk Fujifilm. Just to keep Greg happy. What are you shooting with these days?
Okay. I've got quite a bit of Fuji gear. I'll tell you my Fuji story, okay? So in around about, must have been 2012, 2013, Noel went overseas, Noel Butcher, and he bought an X Pro 1 and that holy trinity of lenses, the 18mm f2, the 35 1.4, and the 60mm 2.8. 2.8, 2.2.
2.4.
2.4, thank you.
Yeah.
And I looked at the work he bought. He did one of those cruises across Alaska, and amongst other things. And I looked at the work, and the photos just look so beautiful. And I thought, I'm going to get one of these and try it out. So I think I bought the 3 lenses and the camera. And the X Pro 1's a bit of a frustrating beast. The sensor is just sensational, what it can do.
Yeah.
Once it makes up its mind what to focus on, it's great. Okay, I'm going to be honest about it, but it's capable of taking great photos, really, really good photos.
Mm.
So as soon as the X Pro 2 came out, I think I got an XT1, which was marginally better, but not really that much better. And then the X Pro 2 came out and the XT2. And all of a sudden, the autofocus was locking in a lot easier. And that was it for me, I've never seen a better set of lenses on a camera. I'm not getting paid by Fuji. They've done, they haven't given me any cameras, guys. I've got to stress that.
Not yet.
They owe me a couple. I tell you what, I've sold a lot of cameras for them over the years just by recommending them. But anyway, I did all that power station work was done on the X Pro 2 and the XT2. And, as I was saying, metre wide prints, they are just sensational. And since then, I've owned the X-T3, the X-T4, I've got two X-T5s now, and I've got a little X100T, which I'd love to have upgraded to the current one, but they're just so damn expensive for a fixed lens camera, in my opinion. It's fantastic for Fuji. I mean, if someone wants to pay up near, $3,000 for a fixed lens camera, that's fine. And they've brought out this 100 megapixel Goliath now that's a fixed lens camera for, I don't know, what is it? So Greg, you'd probably know what it's worth. It's probably $7,000 or something.
Yeah, 7 to 8. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm sure there's a lot of mining engineers who will really love it, who've got that money to splash. But most working photographers don't have that money to splash on a fixed lens camera now. Why would you buy that as a working photographer when you don't go away? I'm coming back.
The suspense.
Show and tell. To make that bigger. Oh, hang on. Are you okay?
Unzipping a couple of cases.
Okay. I love show
There
and
we
tell.
go. So, you can probably buy the Fuji 50S, GFX 50S, S2 with a zoom for virtually the same amount of money.
Yeah.
Or not much change, not much difference. And you got a great camera. It's pretty compact for a medium format camera. I find it's good. All that portrait work that you see there, the close-up headshots in some of those galleries, is done with that camera and a 100mm, 110mm f2 lens, which is, all the lenses are so incredibly sharp. I've never seen a better set of lenses. When I had Canon gear, most of the lenses are pretty sharp, pretty good, but they just weren't crisp like this. I believe they've done some new models which are better these days, but
no, not really.
I'm just really happy. Now, is it perfect? No, it's not a perfect camera. None of them are perfect. Is it slow? I was talking to David Callow, and he's done some beautiful photos, absolutely ripper portraits on his 50S2, and he was saying, I just hate the way it won't decide where to focus, and this guy's world press photo winner for sports photography. He knows what quick focus is all about. Is the GFX 50S2 that? No, it's not. But I mean, what, you want to go and get a Hasselblad 500 cm, and pretend it's a sports camera? It's a medium format camera. It's not meant to be the things a lot of people criticise it for being. It's a medium.
The only argument I'd say against that is Fujifilm, and this is, I don't blame them. I do exactly the same thing. Is they do push the abilities of that system for sports and things like that in their marketing. Yeah. And they get sports photographers to use it, and have images at the launch saying, oh, this was shot on the GFX or whatever. And obviously you can take great sports photos with a GFX. Absolutely you can. But it's probably, like you say, it's not the tool for the job for someone that wants the most speed, the most reliability, but they market it as like, hey, it can do this and it can do that, but it's probably not the perfect tool for it, depending on what you're trying to do.
My old boss, Stuart Pemberthy, used to shoot sport on a speed graphic. Okay, so he had a speed graphic 5x4 plate camera. He'd pre-focus on an area of the ground, and he'd wait for the sports people to run into it and take the photo when they got to the spot where it was in focus. And he had a Graphmatic, and the speed graphic had the capability of the focal plane shutter. It had a focal plane shutter and a leaf shutter. And he would take one shot with the focal plane shutter, which would be at, say, a 250th of a second. The second time you could shoot it again, but it would halve the shutter speed. So the second shot would be at a 125th of a second. So, and he'd rack the plates in and out, and then he'd cock the leaf shutter and take a third shutter. That was the equivalent of motor drive back in the day.
High speed.
You can take photos with anything, and that's right. I mean, but that's what was there back in the day. Now, then we moved to medium format, and then pretty quickly they went from Mamiya Press into Nikons and things like that, and motor drives, but you were still manually focusing. And you had to get pretty good at that. But to tell the truth, I've had a play with the top line Sony. What's that? The A1, is it?
A1, yeah.
I mean, holy shit, that thing can focus. I mean, it's just mind-blowingly quick. And Fuji is the X-T5's a lovely camera, and but Fuji need to do some serious improvement in their autofocus algorithms, as far as I'm concerned. Because I'm not sponsored to them or anything, I can say that with entire honesty. Do I need those fast autofocus algorithms? No, I don't need them. I'm photographing people and things, and the X-T5 is totally fast. The GFX is totally fast enough for what I'm doing, and I'm okay with that. But let's not pretend it's something that it's not. I don't know what Fuji have done, because they have always been behind the autofocus speed has always been a little bit behind the eight ball, in my opinion, and they need to spend a little bit of extra time and effort into speeding that up. A lot of other things they've really improved majorly. The battery life on the original XTs and X Pros was woeful, and that new battery they put in is great. And I'll say something for the new battery, the 250 or 260, whatever the number it is of that WP battery. It fits both the XTs and it fits the GFX. So if you're running two systems, it's great,
That's nice.
I'm not
Canon
sure.
wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, it just makes sense. If you're working pro and you just need to run one set of batteries, I'm not sure if the X100, what is it, V1 or whatever it is, I'm not sure if they're running the new battery yet. And if they aren't, shame on Fuji for not having done it. If they are, good on them. Because, there'd be a lot of photographers who just run, say, an X-T5, X-T4 and have a X100 alongside it as a second body, which would make a lot of sense. So if it's not running the same battery system, do you know that, Greg?
From memory, it's not. I think it's still using the original WP126 or the newer one, the 126S.
Yeah, but
it has a higher capacity and supports boost mode.
But it's nowhere near as good as that new battery.
No, it's not. The new high capacity battery is pretty phenomenal.
So that would be an extra. If they brought that in, I'd consider one. I'd think it'd be great. But I
have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I asked this to Michael Coyne last week, but I'm going to ask you because I think your answer will be great. What would they need to put into a Fujifilm X Pro 4? What changes would they need to make? What sort of camera would that X Pro 4 be for you to run out and buy one when it hits the shelves?
Pretty simple, actually. I love the X Pro 2 still. I still get it out and I still use it regularly. I know it's quite a few years old now, but I've kind of got an emotional attachment to it, funnily enough. So what we were just talking about, faster autofocus. I'm actually pretty happy with it. The new battery. I think is the X Pro 3 have the new battery. If it doesn't have the new battery, put the new battery in.
Yeah.
And autofocus. If they put in the 40 megapixel sensor, so be it. But you know what? There's nothing wrong with a 28 megapixel sensor, and there's nothing wrong with a 16 megapixel sensors. They're all incredibly good. I mean, Fuji just make great lenses, great colour science. That's their strength.
Yeah.
You know, I saw a video on them once where they're talking like Fuji, you know, where they make their money. They use their colour science to make cosmetics.
Yeah, well, that's how they survived the death of film.
Yeah,
They already had the chemistry lab set up. They just flipped it, and went from developing chemicals and products for film to cosmetics. A new CEO came on when that happened, and he said, "Look, let's just retool." And they survived. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe that a company's got such a range of cameras.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
I come from the day where you had the Nikon F and the FM, you know, FM2 or whatever. That's all you needed. And you know, I get lost with, you know, I think what they've just announced the X30. What's that one? The 33 or something's coming out. There's the X70. You know, and
we need an X70 successor. That's for sure. That's my favorite camera. But yeah, they do have quite a range, and we see that.
They're not the biggest camera company in the world, but you know, that everything they make works. Everything works, and everything's pretty good. Now, you know, I'm sure I think if I was going to buy another camera other than Fuji and go back into 35mm, I'd probably go to a Nikon. That would probably be my immediate thought. But I think they've done great strides in the last few years. But the thing about the XT, I think that the series that slows Fuji down is, and I used to get this when I was working commercially in the 80s. So, you know, you'd roll up and the client would say, "Can you shoot this on medium format? We don't want 35mm." And there was a real hangover that stems from the birth of the Leica, you know, that 35mm wasn't real photography, wasn't real film, and the image quality wasn't good enough. And I think there's still a lot of hangover there, that the image quality isn't strong enough, and it's just crap. I mean, the Fuji image quality is incredibly strong, you know. There's plenty of pros using it and liking it. And you know, nobody's looking at the final image saying, "Oh, do you shoot that? You must have shot that in a full frame 35mm camera." Yeah. That's just rubbish these days. Yeah. And it's kind of APS-C is just it's APS-C, isn't it? The format, but
yes,
it's just fantastic. You know, it's incredible. All cameras are great these days. You know, there's hardly a camera made that doesn't take a brilliant photo, including the iPhone.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a saying to photographers: this is the camera. This, you know, camera, whatever you got, it's just a piece of, it's a dumb piece of technology until you apply this to it, you know. And great photos can happen on any piece of technology. Yeah. You know.
It's very true. Amazing advice.
Keep talking. I've got a low blood sugar. I'm a diabetic. So, you know, you don't want me falling down in front of the camera.
We do not. It has, look, we are 2.5 hours in. I'll actually, for the people that still remain, or the people listening to this later on, don't forget, if you're not subscribed, nice lollies. If you're not subscribed to the Camera Life podcast, please subscribe and give us a like, hit the notifications, because the notifications will mean when we go live, you'll get a little notification saying, hey, they're live. If we want to jump into live chat, ask questions, do all that sort of stuff. And otherwise, listen to this later on. If you prefer audio listening afterwards, we are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that kind of stuff. So get around it. We're trying to grow this so that we can get more people on, like Andrew Chapman, to tell their stories.
Yep.
I'm doing things.
Okay.
These are some of the page proofs from Fill the Frame.
Yes,
let's talk about
As you can see, it's going to be a big book. Okay, that's at my head. I'm not using the wide angle to make it look bigger.
Head for scale. It's about 1.5 heads, roughly.
When we did this book, I wanted it for photographers. These are some of the proofs. We've made a few changes since then, but we're using a glossier stock than this. But, you know, look at the double pages.
Yeah.
Another drone photo. You know, I'm just really excited about seeing this book land next week.
Yeah.
So tell us about when did you make the decision to start putting the book together? Tell us about it. Tell us everything.
Well, as you know, I've already done a lot of books, but look, getting old, knowing that you get to 70, you're getting to the pointy end of your life. And as I was saying earlier, you know, do you want to leave a legacy? I mean, I'm not the world's best photographer. I don't, you know, but I'm a solid photographer. I'm a good photographer. I know that. And I've done some good images. I've done some solid images over my life. And, you know, do you want to leave a visual legacy for people to see? And maybe it's ego, I don't know, but I do. And I decided I wanted to do that. I had a little bit of help, some seed funding from a friend of mine, Barry Novi, to get the project rolling. And in the end, you know, I've put the money up for the print run. And it's an expensive print run. It's an expensive book. You know, it's not a cheap book. It's $185, which, you know, a lot of photographers go, oh, I think I'll keep that money for a lens, thanks. But, you know, and I understand that, you know, that's fine. But that's what it costs to do a book, you know, to do it properly. If I'm lucky, I'll get my money back. We've started with a 250 edition run. And if there's demand on it, we you know, it takes us about a month to do another run and get them done, get them delivered.
Is that kind of the smallest run that you can do that works, 250? Is that like, so if you had to do another run, would it be another 250?
The beautiful thing about digital printing, we're using a press in Melbourne called Bambara Press. We had a choice between them. There was a great digital printer called Adams Print down at Geelong, but they've unfortunately dissolved into another company now. But Bambara's been great to me. And you can print one book if you want. It costs you a lot of money to do a book like that as a single book, but you can do one book. You can do 10. The more you do, the cheaper the unit price is. That's the truth about it. And you know, we went down there. We looked at that set of proofs that I was just picking up and showing you a minute ago. I went down there. Noel Butcher's pretty anal about print production and print quality, and he says thorough. I say he's anal, but I think it's the same word. But he went over and we tweaked a few files. We didn't like the matte stock. The printer said this matte stock, a lot of photographers going for it, but it's like a vacuum cleaner of contrast. It just and flatten the prints out. It was something shocking. So we went to a semi-gloss stock, and I pumped quite a few of the images with another 5-10% contrast effectively. But it's still a nervous waiting to see the first copy and hoping you get it.
Now, you're cutting it pretty close, Andrew. So the book launch for Fill the Frame is Saturday, the 11th of October.
Yeah.
And that's in conjunction with the Ballarat International Photo Biennale. Did I say that right?
Yeah. Biennale.
Thank you. No one knows how to say that word. It's a stupid word.
Great festival.
Wonderful festival. Yeah, we love it. We're all for it. So, you know, in sort of less than 2 weeks, you've got your book launch. So tell us about what that's going to involve.
Deadlines.
Deadlines and nervous energy.
The books are going to be ready Wednesday next week, hopefully. They know the book launch is on, so I'm just hoping they come through for me. I'll be sweating until then. Not just that they arrive, but that they look good. So it's part of Book Week. down there at the Biennale at 101 Lydiard Street, North Ballarat. Come down if you want to come down, 101 Lydiard Street. I think if you go onto the Ballarat Biennale website, there'll be a link to it.
Yeah, I'll bring it up. I'll show you.
I got it.
Oh, you got it?
I'm eating a lolly, by the way.
No, you're right.
It's okay. Yeah, so if you go to the website, you can go find the book launch. You can book for it, and the cost is included with the festival pass.
I think it's actually a free event, that particular one. But if you want to see other events, and there's a great show on Catherine Leroy, who was a French photojournalist who was in Vietnam 1966 to 1968, and she got in really close. So I think that her book launch follows mine. Unfortunately, there's not an exhibition with it. I'd love to have had an exhibition, but that wasn't happening. So it's just a book launch, but come down and say hello. Yeah. Michael Coyne is going to just do a quick introduction. He'll be there if you want to say hi to Michael as well. There'll be quite a lot of photographers down there, I suspect. And Alan Atwood, veteran journalist from The Age, who's a keen photographer himself, he's going to be there. It'll be fun. Yeah.
Our only regret is it will be at BFOP that weekend.
Yeah.
So, right festival.
Yeah, I mean, why didn't you call me before you made that arrangement?
I blame the BFOP people for
I think
being so inconsiderate.
We locked it in last year.
Well, that was probably before I decided on this. Having said that, I probably shouldn't say this yet, but I'm also hoping to do an event in Melbourne later on, maybe November the 1st at Magnet Galleries Saturday.
Cool.
And just on book production and putting books together. And we'll have Anna Wolfe, my great book designer, along with Phil Campbell, who designed the Mallee and the Wimmera, and is just launching on the 24th a book on Melbourne interiors, all the contemporary shots shot on his Fuji. And I loaned him my 8-16mm wide angle just to do some of the very tight interiors. He had an issue with his wide angle lens. So it's kind of book month, October. There's lots of happening. Yeah. But Noel will be there. Michael Silver, who's been around in photography in Melbourne for a long time. I'm sure a couple of other people will rock up, a couple of other photographers on the day. So I haven't even put anything out about it yet, but I'm telling you, you're first to know.
You heard it here.
Heard it. Yeah,
you heard it here first. Yeah. And like I said, I'm just hoping hoping enough people want to put their hands in the pocket and I'll get my money back. That's all. It's not a profit-making business publishing books, I can tell you, but it's a little bit egocentric. I'm not going to deny that, but hopefully it'll be a beautiful work and people will enjoy the images. That's what it's about.
Yeah, no doubt. And so the book is also available on 10 Bag Press, which is the publisher that you have used for a number of your books. So that's already up for pre-order on that website.
Yes, so
grab it from there as well.
Delivery will only be a week away or so now. So that's 10bagpress.com.au. Adam McNichol is the proprietor. He's a Ballarat-based publisher, and we've done some great. I met him. I talked about designer Phil Campbell before, and Phil got me to come and work on a project on a book on Manangatang, a social history of Manangatang. And Adam wanted to do this book, and he'd gone to Phil, and then Phil suggested I come up and do it. And we all hit it off pretty well. We had a ball doing it, made no money. They gave me $1,000, which probably barely covered anything. But, it wasn't about the money. It's not always about the money. I wanted to do something in the country, and I got a stack of great shots up there. And then, we used to sit around and have a bit of a chat, chew the fat. And, he said, I want to do a book on the Mallee. And that's how the whole Mallee concept came. And I said, I can put a team of photographers together to do this book.
Yeah.
And we managed, and that way we managed to do it in a very short time. And then we did the Wimmera and then the Western District. And, I would have kept going. If I was 10 years younger, we'd be doing, we'd actually mapped out the central goldfields, northeast, the east and west, east and southwest Gippsland as 2 different books. I would have done them all.
Yeah.
But, time and tide, I can't do it at the moment.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Fair enough indeed.
Well, maybe some other photographers will take up the mantle. And,
there's lots of young, keen photographers out there. You've got to make these things happen, Be energetic, get out there with your help each other. Photography is not about, I know this and you're not going to know it. I'm not going to tell you what I know. Tell people what you know. They're not going to, then, people still know you had the person with the idea or whatever. I mean, I believe in sharing, not keeping things away from people. That's my motto, and helping other photographers climb the ladder. It's like a family out there, and if people are interested in photography, that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's exactly why we do what we do here on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. To remove all those barriers and make it accessible for anyone to learn.
Yeah.
Or to ask. There's no shame in asking for help. And the greatest thing that we can do, photographers, is to answer those calls for help. Share
absolutely. Talking about answering calls for help, if I can, so you probably want to go.
No,
anyway,
we're fine. I
showed you earlier, Greg. I think Justin was there. I've got to hook it into the frame there. That's my copy box for photographing. Can you see that?
Yeah.
To make it out. That's an old Bowen's Illumitran copy scan with my XT5 Fuji on it, and I was having trouble getting images edge to edge sharp, and with the conventional Fuji 60mm, and most lenses fail because they can focus towards the center, but they can't keep it to the edge. But I bought this Roden stock 75mm Apo Rotagon F4 lens from China of all places for $200. I'd seen them advertised for $400, $500 on eBay. Anyway, it came in, it's in perfect condition and it's working good. And it is virtually flat field. It'll virtually get edge-to-edge sharpness on slides. So I'm able to shoot them all on RAW and get pretty good control over it. I've got over in the corner of the room, let's see if you can see those 2 filing cabinets? They're full of slides, and
oh, wow.
They're not my greatest shots. They're just shots that I took, they're record shots of a lot of stuff. But I'm kind of, I'm going to just digitize the whole lot very quickly. And then maybe if I need to, I don't know if I'll get rid of them. I'm in 2 minds whether
No, you can't do that.
Well, I'm thinking about, what's the family going to do with them in, I'll probably be gone in 10 years. So what's the family
going to do? That's their problem.
It is their problem. Yeah, it's true.
That's what I think. The kids will sort that out. Whatever.
They can have a slide night.
Yeah.
Oh, slide nights. I can remember slide nights. That Zeiss NetAx. My father bought it. I think he bought it in Japan, funnily enough, for a German camera. Anyway, he was with the Australian Wheat Board and stationed up in Japan for 10 months in 1963. And he shot all these ectochromes 2¼ inch. And we used to have slide nights. And I can still remember getting the old slide projector, as I must have been 10, and shining it through the back window down the ground. We used to love having slide nights. They were a great feature of things,
Yep.
Yeah.
It was a simpler life back then.
It's a shame that has kind of disappeared because everything's so shared so rapidly, person to person. You don't gather around something anymore to view images. People just see them on their social media feeds or whatever separately.
Well, there's a podcast for you. You set up a slide projector night with 2 or 3 photographers, and get their best. Tell them to put their 10 best photos in, but 10 best slides, and talk about them.
So a live slide night where we have the projector, the camera is pointed at a projector, and then we have another camera pointed at the 3 or 4 photographers gathered around the microphones and stuff. And it's literally a lot. Okay, I'm going to do that. Cool. I love that. Live slide night.
Well, I mean, on Monday evenings when we have our random photography show, we already do image review. So people can send us their images and we talk live. And
kind of is a slide night, isn't it? But
it
it's
is,
digital.
but it's just
like digital
taking it
slide
to the
night.
next level.
I'm not giving you my images to review. I might cry myself to sleep.
Well,
I'm a bit sensitive soul.
We don't really review them.
Yeah, not an official
just,
review.
No, we barely even critique them. Everything was basically like, that's very cool. And then we talk about
You don't say, I think you should take up tapestry.
No.
I would love to do I'd have to pre-warn people though, but I'd love to do a comedy version of it where we roast every photo that comes up, no matter how good it is, and say how terrible it is. But we need to we need to prepare people for that. We basically just look at the photos and talk about how much fun it is taking photos and what gear they've used and stuff like that. It's not really a critique or anything like that.
And like you said earlier, we check out their EXIF data if it's there. We talk about the shooting conditions and the settings, and it's breaking it down. We love
sometimes
doing
they've
that.
got questions about how they could have done it better or whatever, but most of the time it's just, I mean, some of the shots that David Leparati sent in of he's an ex-RAAF photographer. He's got shots of jets flying over Sydney Harbour that he shot with medium format film hanging out the back of a big jet prop plane.
I think those RAAF photographers. I know Brian Carr, who lives down in Wonthaggi these days, who worked up at Sale for the RAAF. He's got some great stories about going in there and they give you a set of gear and you get this Linhof master techniker and a set of lenses and and he's developing technique for doing 500 10/8 prints at once in a tray. So you got prints that big and you're doing 500 at a time. And,
wow.
They actually taught them pretty well. They taught them a lot of pretty interesting technique and that.
Well, we still have to get some people on that do Defence Force photography, but there's a lot of red tape for them to go through to get the
current ones.
Current ones,
you were just talking about. I reckon Brian Carr would be a good chat with you. He's just done a book called Music City. He's been photographing bands in fringe pubs around Melbourne for 40 years, 50 years. But he can talk about all those early days in the RAAF.
Yeah.
Don't get the current ones. They're all sworn to secrecy, Or get all the X ones. They'll tell you what's going on.
Lucinda says she's got trauma from having prints ripped up in front of her. Imagine that. You're so proud of this image and they're just junk.
Just hang on 1 second. Noel, come up here. Noel's just arrived for a bowl of soup, so hopefully he's going to come and show his face. Here he is. Look. Here's the man himself. There you go.
Hello.
Yeah.
What's up? What do you got there?
Oh, just some prints for him, but you're not allowed to keep him too long because he promised to make me lunch.
Oh, that's all right. Well, we'll let him go and make you some soup.
Yeah.
What's your specialty, Andrew? What's your specialty soup? What's your favourite?
We got Thai pumpkin soup today.
Oh.
Oh, well, how long does it take you guys to get up here? Here and I'll say, sorry, it's all gone, I'm afraid. But, he's just been doing some That's the back. It's in plastic wrap.
Oh, that's one of the sheds, one of the
Yeah,
shed photos.
yeah, that's the back cover photo of the book too.
Oh,
That's
wow.
a great shot.
Yeah.
A guy called Peter Stewart, who's unfortunately passed away now. But there's a real intensity to the gaze.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for
Eyes.
Yeah.
Looking into the camera, you know.
Every time I scroll past that photo on the website, it instantly grabs you.
It does grab you,
Yeah,
Yep.
instantly.
Well, you'll have to book.
Yeah, I'll have to get myself a copy when it's available. I can't wait. I'm on a book buying spree at the moment. It's it's a heavy investment, but I'm trying to build a little bit of a library. Just trying to slowly. Basically, anyone that comes on the podcast that's got a book, I'm buying it. And I figure at some point that'll all come together of a collection of interviews and books and things that I don't know what it's going to be, but it's something.
Yeah.
So
Building your own legacy.
exactly, documenting this.
Yeah.
But I didn't even get round to talking about printing photos and all the swagger 10x8 prints and the boxes and boxes of prints we've got from the Darkroom.
We might have to get you back for a part 3.
Well, it might have to do. Well, I listened to your black and white one with my good friend Brent Lukey and a couple of other photographers talking about black and white. I think I had this conversation with you, Greg, privately, but they all knew lots about black and white, but they hadn't lived back in the day when we were shunting through 40, 50 rolls a week and doing things like that. My boss, he used to tell me back in the day, everyone was smoking, right? And they'd have these square, big, deep Kodak tanks full of whatever, D76 usually, Kodak D76. So you go in with the plate, those 5x4 inch plate negatives, right? And lower sensitivity film, so probably 50 ISO, something like that. You get in, unload, turn off the light, unload the 5x4 sheets, put them in the holders, drop them in the tank, and wiggle them a bit. Put the lid on, turn the light back on, light a fag. You do this. Fag's nearly gone. Okay, turn off the light, lift the lid, pull the images up by the back, puff up the cigarette. If you could see the image through the back of the negative, you whacked it straight in the fixer. If you couldn't see it, you put it back in for another minute or two. And that's called develop by inspection. It's a true story. That's what they used to do. And the other quick one for getting negatives, drying into the enlarger. I think, Noel, you might be able to confirm this, is using methylated spirits to quick dry. So you develop the neg, fix, half a minute wash, stick it into methylated spirits, pull it out, squeegee or wipe it with your fingers, and the methylated spirits would virtually dry straight away. And then you can whack the negative into the enlarger and print it straight away. Probably wasn't overly great for archival purposes, but when you had a deadline, it was the way. Yeah. So that was the fast way to get stuff through. Anyway,
Darkroom hacks.
Amazing.
I love it.
Yeah.
We'll have to do. Yeah, we might have to do a show. A show of sort of, I don't know what the topic would be. Yeah, just like old school working photography. What it was really like.
Yeah, I think if you want old, Noel would definitely be good for that.
You're in the background.
Oh,
goodness.
I'm much younger than him, but but there's some great stories from some of those old days. Some of the great old photographers around. Bruce Possel, John Casamento, people like that. They've got great old stories.
Yep. We want to capture them.
Exactly. We're going to get through everybody. That's the plan.
Yep. Every single person. But look, I think that might be a good place to park this episode for now. But I feel like they're to be continued. Should be flashing across the screen at any moment. Justin can just make that happen. But I think we'll wrap there for the day. Look, Andrew, as always, it has been an absolute honor and delight to catch up with you once again and to hear of your ongoing body of work. It feels like it's never stopped. It's never finished. And I think that's one of your superpowers, is that there's always an opportunity to take another shot. So let's just go and do it. Get up early, get yourself out, take the shot. But on behalf of us here, just thank you so much for your time today, once again. And just to remind everyone who's watching or listening along that at the Ballarat International Photo
Biennale.
Thank you. Andrew's having his book launch, Fill the Frame. It's on the 11th of October. And it's at midday at 11 October, 12 to 1.
101 Lydiard Street North, Ballarat.
Lydiard Street North. Yep. But if you head to the Ballarat International Photo Biennale. Thank you. I still can't get it right. Still. All the details for the book launch are there. If you're in town or if you're in the area, drop on by, say good day to Andrew, and throw some support in his direction. But we wish you all the best with the launch. We're sorry we can't be there, but we're looking forward to having you back on in the future and chatting more about how that went and how your other projects are going. Good. Well, hopefully I've got some other ones to tell you about next time. But I can certainly tell you about the past. And hopefully I'll have something new to tell you. Yeah, and we look forward to it. Like you said, the black and white one, I think that's a great idea. And the slide. Let's do it.
I think the slide night. I want to do the slide night with you, and we need a couple other photographers that have some images, and I think that'd be a great time. So let's make that happen. Yep. Okay. But we will let you get to your Thai pumpkin soup. And we envy Noel of that opportunity.
Don't envy him. Just encourages him.
Yeah. Oh dear. Right. But on that note, I think we'll roll the music and say our farewells. Yeah, I'll play some music and we'll talk to some people in the chat, bring up some comments, because Philip Johnson says until Monday. Until Monday, Philip. Good to see you, as always. See you then. Matt Palmer, photography judge, says anyone that would rip up a print in front of you is a worse teacher or judge than you could ever be a photographer. Yeah, true story. See you, Matt. Rodney Nicholson, good to have you. Roy, good to see you. Who else have we got? I think there was a few. Lisa Leach said another incredible episode. Thanks, guys, and Andrew for sharing your amazing stories. Ian Thompson says, as a former hot air balloon pilot, there is nothing more serene than an early morning flight. That's beautiful. And who else we got? I don't know. There was a ton of people. Bruce Moyle had to leave early. Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, Lucinda. Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Be safe. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.